So, this talk was, I guess, a while coming. When I saw the video and the title, very straightforward as what your message was, and I try not to be too cynical or negative in my thoughts, but honestly, I couldn't find much to disagree with in your video, especially speaking as an American who is also black, LGBTQ plus, leftist. I'm pretty much like the three strikes against me in this place. Um, One of the things that I like really stood out was how much you pointed out things that could work but ultimately wouldn't because of so much that's stacked against a lot of Americans at the moment. Um, I just thought you'd like reiterate that just real quick, so we could just like,
Yeah, just the matter of whenever you say that America is fucked, people immediately go towards like, yeah, we need to do these certain things, X, Y, Z, these reforms. We need to tax the rich more because the prosperity gap is so wide in America. We need to uh, enforce gun legislation because look at all these school shootings and look at all these mass shootings that are happening. We need to control our corporations. We need to curtail police spending. We need to reform the police. We need to cut military spending. We need to do this and that. And none of that will actually work to solve the problems in the United States. Either they will never happen because the United States is fundamentally reliant upon them um, on account of the fact that it is hyper capitalist at this point. And it's not, as I discussed in the video, it's not politicians, it's not political parties that run the United States. It is these large businesses, these large business owners, these war profiteers, these um, lobbyists uh, that are running the nation. So these laws aren't going to be passed, and those that will be, that could possibly be, will not be passed in a way that actually benefits the working class. The big example is UBI, which I don't actually talk about in the video, but I still see all the time in anti-work, like uh,
mm,
like I use this background for. Um, all the time, people are saying we need UBI, we need to have a universal basic income to put employers back on the ropes to actually make employment competitive again. And I used to be all for UBI. I was 100% on board when I first found out that people are actually pushing for it. Not only are people pushing for it, but businesses are pushing for it. Wow, here's something that would actually solve all of the problems that I can see with poverty, with the prosperity gap, all in one measure. And I thought that sounds fantastic.
mm.
And we bring it up to Marxists, to leftists in general, and they're like, no, UBI can go suck a dick. UBI is not happening, or UBI, if it does happen, is going to be terrible. And that really rankled with me for quite a while until I finally saw where they're coming from. They're not saying that UBI as I want it is a bad idea. They're saying UBI as I want it will never happen. And the UBI that will/may happen will be the UBI that benefits businesses, that benefits landlords, that benefits the top 1%, 5%.
This would be like the U. So like I never actually heard about that. Like when they say UBI wouldn't work or would like go the wrong way, does it mean like UBI wouldn't like give people enough money or wouldn't like
Um,
I guess
some
I'm
of
not sure.
the criticisms against it include the fact that it is meant to replace other forms of welfare, which includes things like
Mm,
disability, um,
mm,
in favor of paying people um, a single universal basic income. It's meant to cut out a lot of that bureaucracy, but it is likely that it would also, again, because it's being supported by businesses and not being pushed by people who actually need these funds. It might cut out those people who do need extra funding, people with, say, severe physical disabilities, mental health, um, physical health, medical dental, all that wonderful stuff that costs a lot more money depending on your situation.
So it's like if they have the universal basic income, they'll basically be like, "Well, we already did the universal basic income. We don't need any of this other stuff. That
Exactly.
would
Yeah.
be too
Yeah.
much." Because like they're setting up like artificial limitations on themselves. Like, well, if we have universal basic income, we can't possibly do disability stuff or stuff for other minorities because that
Yeah.
would just be too expensive.
Yeah. This UBI is meant to be universal. You wanted equality. Here's your equality. I'm giving it to you. Just because you need $500 a month also in medications, that's what your UBI is for. Make it work, man. The other um, criticism of it is that it would just result in raised prices, which is often the criticism as well of increasing the minimum wage. But for UBI, it's a lot more applicable because it is universal. The minimum wage going up doesn't actually increase the minimum wage or the wages of everybody, whereas UBI would increase the amount of money that everybody gets, which means it would increase the amount of money that everybody can pay to their landlords, to their banks, to these things. So rent in particular would absolutely skyrocket, and UBI might wind up just going towards landlords' pockets, which might be why you have these, large landlords, these large corporate landlords supporting universal basic income.
Well, it's also that thing of like, when we say that prices go up, I think we both like know that its price is like unfairly going up because it's
Yes.
like it's any reason they give for a price is going up, it's never a good reason. It's it's always been bullshit because I know this is a naive way to think, but I've never been one to believe that um America is too poor to take care of everyone. I've
Mhm.
never believed that. I've never believed this artificial scarcity stuff about money. I mean, it's fucks like money's made up anyway. It's like I've never believed there's any limitation as far as commerce is concerned and how much money people can get. Like that's all just made up and it's all a game.
Yeah,
Um,
it is made up.
so
Yeah.
like that's always to some that comes off as naive thinking, but like to me it's just like it's never been real. It's just been a game we've all been playing at. But like, whenever I hear, I remember when I was a kid, like I first heard about how we just print money, and like, yeah, my kid brain thought, why don't we just print more money? But like as I get older, it's kind of like, well, I mean,
That's how
why
you get
don't
inflation.
we?
And why? Because it's not about that money, there not being enough money. It's about the wrong people getting that money. And that's the worry about universal basic income is inevitably, if it's being passed by the powers that be, it's going to benefit the powers that be.
Mhm.
So
And then
my argument was always, well, like obviously we'll have rent controls with along with UBI, and the answer is, well, why on earth would they do that? Why would they allow that to happen? Why would they allow you to have that money?
yeah, and then to go on the other lawmaking topic of gun control, this was one I actually did kind of disagree on a little bit,
Mhm.
but I understand why you doubt it's ever going to happen. Um, I've heard both sides of it. The one side being if they do gun control legislation, something like that, it's obviously going to stop, the disenfranchised from owning weapons and being able to bear arms to fight against a tyrannical government, that kind of thing. I've also heard the argument, of course, that, and I think this is one I kind of lean more on, is that at least as far as America goes, there's way, way too many unstable people getting access to guns, like illegally, even. People who've had histories of violence or have been shown to not be the most stable, just able to get a gun that they do not need for like personal defense, like some giant assault rifle that's being used by soldiers and then getting a lot of ammo, not being asked questions about it, and then just going and doing whatever. And so I think a kind of law to keep those kind of high powered guns, like it's more about I know this has pushback, but it's like it's increasing, of course, mental health care, which I know that's a other big hurdle to do. Um, you know, increasing mental health care for those that need it, and then making sure that people who are not mentally in the right place don't own those guns, and then really cracking down on like, okay, what kind of guns are allowed to just be owned or bought right now. And I think it's unique because America has such a gun craze problem that it's like there kind of needs to be limitations because unfortunately the people getting the guns right now are the ones that are trying to hurt us. It's not really the disenfranchised getting these guns or using them that much because a lot of us don't really want to, you know, a lot of minorities, at least, at least me, type of me, yeah, I'd want to defend myself, but I also am not really a violent person. I don't really feel the need to, unlike a lot of these really irrational people, I don't feel the need to just go out and shoot things all the time. I get angry, but I wouldn't say I'd like want to just buy a gun and just start going crazy with it.
No.
Um, so like a lot of people like me, we don't really feel the need to own guns, while these people who have been brainwashed by years of right-wing propaganda and just this crazy hysteria, they're always the ones getting it. And I feel like that also leads to, well, the people that are in charge right now, the left wing, to be aggressive and openly stating that a lot of the right wing are terrorists. They are actual danger to this country, which a lot of people do not want to say out loud because, that's like, oh, we should try to find a middle ground. We should, shake hands on it, find compromise. And I've said it for years, but like they're not interested in compromising. A lot of these people who are not only trying to push for these acts of violence, but also committing these acts of violence,
Mhm.
they've never been for a compromise or finding a middle ground, shaking hands. And if anything, that insurrection proved that. Like that was the
Yeah.
final nail in the coffin. When I saw that, like it was it was this realization of like I couldn't believe it, but it's also this like thing of like it was the biggest sense of I fucking told you so
Yeah.
that I've ever felt in years. Because I remember back in 2016, before the election results came, and I'll never forget this. When I was back in college, I was leaving one of my classes. One of my professors, who is, I think she was an elderly Hispanic woman, but before she let everyone out, she talked about the election. It was just like, listen, I'm not gonna say it, but just remember everything that Trump's been saying, and remember the people in history who have said similar things and where that led. And she just said that and then let us go. And I've
Mhm.
never forgot that because she was right on the fucking money.
Yeah.
When he got elected, I felt a pit in my stomach. Things felt like they was going to get worse. Then for the next 4 years, it got worse. And then the election year came up in 2020. And I've never felt more stressed in my life. And then when the election, was done, I was relieved. But then in January, you know, it's like everyone thought what happened, it happened. And it should have been at that point that the people who are now in charge, the left wing Democrats, have openly said the right wing is full of terrorists and they are not in our best interest. And we should not be entertaining their, quite frankly, fascist logic and ideals. But instead, we have people still hesitant to call them terrorists, people still hesitant to say that they are detriment, and people still willing to compromise and find some kind of solution, or thinking that my way of thinking is too much. Um, so going back to gun control, it's the sense that the gun control I think would be most effective on the people who are terrorizing this country, but that won't happen until there is an agreed upon sentiment that the right wing, a lot of these conservatives types, extremist far right people, they're the ones causing it. And that needs to be cracked down upon, which I just don't know will ever happen unless we have a more left-leaning Democrat who's actually a leftist infiltrate that party and start, quite frankly, being as aggressive as right wingers have been.
Yeah. And that's just it. That's not going to happen. It's just not. The Democrats, just as much as the Republicans, are heavily reliant on corporate funding. Corporate funding is heavily reliant these days on fascist rhetoric.
Mm.
Fascism is a response to socialism. That's how it comes about. That's how it's always come about. Whenever things get bad under capitalism, socialism rises up, right? People see the holes in the system and they say, hey, we need a better system. We need a system that takes care of everybody. So capitalists need to fight back against that. And what do they use? They use divisiveness, right?
Yeah.
And they use fascism. That's why fascism is capitalism in decline. You hear that a lot. Or capitalism and what's the exact phrasing? I'm trying to remember now. Capitalism in crisis. That's what it is.
Uh,
Fascism is capitalism in crisis, but that's only half of the picture. Fascism is a response to socialism, which is a response to capitalism in crisis. And for
but here's
that
the
reason,
thing.
you are never going to have a socialist in a capitalist government that is in crisis, because the government is being controlled by those capitalists who are in crisis and very much want to push this far right rhetoric. That's why the Democrats, as you said, despite absolutely everything, despite Trump being possibly the most unpopular president in US history, they haven't said a single word against him since getting in, have they?
Well, here's the thing: the mainstream Democrats haven't said it. There
Mm.
are Democrats who, of course, they'll call themselves Democrats because they can't call themselves leftists. They have to be a little, subtle
Mm-hmm.
to get in first. But there are a lot of, at least over here, I don't know if you've seen it, but like there are, politicians leaning on the left who do try to speak that more radical speech, but they try to do it really clever, like, or as a way to like
Yeah.
just like get, you know, just enough. And it's just like here's again my slight bit of optimism. I don't know if it will happen in my lifetime or any lifetime anytime soon, but I will say that there is a growing popularity with leftism now more than it was 4 years ago.
Oh,
Um,
definitely. Among the
because
population, yeah.
when I started getting really political when I was, I'd say 16, I think. I grew up in a Democratic household. Um, and, as the times we were as progressive as we possibly could be. I still had the naivete of everyone should have free speech, don't censor anyone. I definitely was kind of in that liberal mindset. I feel like the Trump presidency plus what happened in 2020, that started to radicalize me. Now I know I'm a leftist. I don't know what I'd identify within that leftist space. I know I'm not like a tanky or anything. I don't even think
But
tanky's really a
but
leftist. Like it's kind of like going in a circle. Like it's kind of like it's like you just kind of. I found people who are like they say they're leftist, but then they have like some really fucky kind of fascist ideals, and it's like I don't know if you're a leftist, but
yeah,
yeah,
Nazbols are definitely a thing. We've talked about Caleb Maupin before, for instance.
yeah.
That sort of
So
individual. Those are
you know,
on a different level.
yeah, I'd say that I am the leftist. It's just like, hey, I believe in this crazy thing called like caring for people and like making sure people are okay. And hey, homelessness is like that can be fixed, like if you guys just cared about people. Like I guess my kind of extremism thought that I realized, I think it's what kind of really disturbed me was realizing that my way of thinking was seen as extreme, which was just that I care about people
Mhm.
and like I see a lot of fucked up shit. I see a lot of racist shit and I think that's bad. And it's funny because it's like I don't know if you remember this like as clearly, but I remember in the 2012 to like 2015 space was that really kind of like edgy phase that everyone had where it was just like oh, it's just a joke, these racist stuff is just a joke. And I mean I was kind of a little part of that. And I was a teenager, I didn't know any better. um and then those 4 years of the presidency really taught me about the danger of those oh, it's just jokes rhetoric.
Yeah.
And then as 2020 came in and I saw the callousness of people not caring about those impacted by COVID, Um, and when I realized like my beliefs where they actually aligned at that point, it scared me how much that was seen as being extreme. How me caring about people and wanting people to be okay financially and wanting the rich to pay more and wanting fascists to be punished for speaking hate speech, how that's an extreme point of view now. How they managed to take the word woke, which was meant to be awareness of injustice to black people like me, and have turned it into this word they don't even know what it means anymore. Like the more I've seen this evolution, the more it's frightened me how it's like this has always been happening. You know, like I
Mhm.
didn't know it, but it was always happening ever since then, even before the presidency. This slowly growing popular sentiment of being an uncaring douchebag.
So the fact that that is the status quo, that it is extremist, as you say, to care about people, my big question, and the big question asked in the video that's the subject of this talk is, does that make you think that reform is possible?
And you're right, it's not. And the beginning of the Black Lives Matter thing that happened in 2020, I was it's funny because it wasn't long. I was team reform the police. Obviously, I've never liked police, but I
Mhm.
was on reform the police side.
Yeah.
That position didn't last long, and like it took only a few months for me to be like, nah, just abolish the whole thing.
Mhm.
It's just like
As
because
soon as
like
you
you
find out that
saw,
there's alternatives, then like where
well,
else do you go?
the problem is that America is this case where it is so violent here. It is so stupidly violent, and it's like I remember I saw your video on the alternative for cops, right?
Mhm.
And it sounded great. Like I'm not even trying to clown you on it. It sounded great. The problem is we have so many shootings here. We have
Mhm.
so many acts of violence that like the only thing that could curb it, and again, I'm not trying to come off in any way. It's like the only way that could curb stuff like that is like an actual enforcement or something, not enforcement, but like some kind of security or something to stop that from happening. But the problem is, it's like it's funny because like it keeps getting challenges. Like I'm thinking, okay, yeah, this country's really violent, so of course you need some kind of forceful opposition to fight that violence, and then Uvalde happens, and you realize that but they're not really obligated to even help us. They'll just let you be a target practice for an hour
Yeah.
and just sit there with their hands on their asses, just not doing anything, and they'll stop anyone from trying to help.
Mhm.
But it's like it's one of those things. It's just like I love your solution, but I just don't see that alternative. My whole thing is like what I'd like is to completely abolish the entire police force. And this is harder than it would even be, but like some kind of protection, not enforcement, not like a law enforcement thing, just like protection, a simple protective group. But the problem is that kind of thing can really be easy to get corrupted. I
Yeah.
know that because power will corrupt, especially power wielded by those who have certain, racial beliefs and stuff. But again, it's just like America's just so violent. It's like some kind of protections needed from a lot of these domestic terrorists that does need to be violent. But unfortunately, that wouldn't really target the people that it needs to target or
Yeah.
help people that need help. So that's one thing that's like I truly have no idea what would work for America if the police are abolished. I just truly don't know. Your idea sounds great. It's just America, it's too violent for that, especially the frequency that it happens so much. Like the culture of America is too violent for that kind of counselor peace approach, unfortunately. And I don't know what your thoughts would be on that.
My immediate thoughts on that are, what are your thoughts about arming those people at risk?
I would love that. But as we had mentioned before with gun control, like that wouldn't really
Yeah.
they, as we've seen in the past, they wouldn't let minorities get that many guns.
Yeah. Yeah.
They-
So I guess
but
ultimately the solution is revolution, but I guess in the ideal world, and for the same reason, but the police aren't going to be abolished, right? They need to be, but they won't be. It's kind of back to that same subject. We can talk all we want about how the police need to be abolished, and we can do X, Y, and Z to replace them and to make the world a better place, or at least America a better place. But it's not going to happen because the system relies very, very heavily on the overfunded police system, right? So what
mm,
we're discussing here is moot ultimately.
yeah,
But
it's
because of
it's
that,
it's
we
me.
can fantasize a bit. We can say, well, what if we do arm the population?
Yeah, it's me basically saying that I do want this. Like, this is about as optimistic as I can get. Is that I do want better, And when you mention these things, like I'm just like, this is great that you're thinking this. I appreciate that you're bringing these ideas up. It's just that as far as America in particular, um, our violence is so ingrained in our culture. Like it just, I don't know how it would work. I really don't know how it would work. I'd love for it to. And arming minorities would be best. As much as I do say we need gun control, I also do believe that yeah, a lot of minorities should be arming up right now
Mhm.
because there is such a that whole thing I talked about the sentiment of being a douchebag, an uncaring douchebag, is going so much here that it's like, we have actual Nazis and sexual offenders and people in power just still there. And
Yep.
yet they'll be the ones talking about how they're canceled or whatever and shit. What's like that's a whole other tangent I can go on about the cancel culture thing.
Oh God.
Um, which is funny because, when I was younger, I thought cancel culture was a thing. Because again, kind of like I was kind of like borderline, like there was like a line, and I was like right on the cusp of it as a liberal to the left thing. So like
Right. Yeah.
I was almost there, and 2020 kind of kicked me right over it. Um, and at that time, I thought cancel culture was a thing, and then you realize, oh, people who are being canceled, they're still talking. They're still talking, still
Hmm.
sharing their bullshit, while the actual minorities are the ones who will get harassed, doxxed, hurt, killed. But
Shadow banned.
sure, yeah, yeah, sure, could go off and say
Yeah.
that you are oppressed as a racist. 'Cause, yeah, just go off on that.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot that I'm refraining from saying because, as we mentioned before we started recording, trying to keep you on YouTube. So, like,
We can slander YouTube all we want.
I mean, for those of you who look, like I said, I'm not a violent person. I don't feel the need to hurt people. However, it is that whole thing of like, be kind to people, be nice, but don't take any shit.
Yeah.
And if I was in a situation where it was between me being a victim and fighting back and defending myself,
Of
I'll
course.
defend myself. Will it be sloppy? Will I probably punch really weakly? Will I not put up that good of a fight?
I've been
Probably
there.
so. But, I gotta do something.
And
It's funny,
that's why
I've
it's
never really
important to
been.
be armed, I think, especially as an American. I can't say I'm saying this as a Canadian where it's basically impossible to have this, and my solution will just be to punch really weakly because I don't like hurting people. But as far as self-defense, when you're an American, you have the option of having a firearm. You can't shoot somebody weakly, right?
Mm,
So I do. I'm used to be very, very anti-gun, and I've just done a complete 180. Similar, I guess to you in 2020 is I used to be very, very anti-gun, and now I'm finding that people do need to end their oppression one way or another. People
I'd
need to
say
be able
for
to
me,
defend themselves.
personally, I'm still anti-gun because the whole the see even people who like have a gun hobby. I
Hmm.
try not to judge. It's just like for me, I find it odd to really enjoy things meant. to hurt other
Oh,
people,
for
you
sure, and
know?
that's a whole different topic,
Like,
I think.
that's on that level, I'm just like, I don't like guns. I would never feel comfortable owning one or having one in my possession. Of course, you know, toy guns, that's fine. It's a toy, you know. It's like Nerf or something like that, water guns, that's fine, whatever. It's actually owning a weapon that I know will hurt someone or has hurt someone that I'm like, I can't own it. Plus, not to get too deep into it, but because of certain personal mental things, I don't feel comfortable with a gun as well.
Mhm.
So it's just like me having a gun is just nothing. It's just that wouldn't work. But it's like I said before, that's for me.
Yeah,
That's just my personal thing.
and
I
that's
am
totally fair.
completely for other people, however, who have more of a comfort with that and a responsibility with that to own the gun to defend themselves from people who wish to do them harm.
Mhm.
I'm in agreement to that. Now, this is where it gets really tricky and why I hate what the right wing does with this, right? What we're speaking right now, unfortunately, in America, we could take everything we're saying and a right winger would think it applies to them because for so long they've tried to paint themselves as the victims, as
Mhm.
the minorities. And so when I just said to keep people like us safe from people who do us harm, a right winger will hear that and be like, "Oh, you mean like those wokies who are trying to hurt me, or the
Yeah.
government who's totally against me, even though they do things that are for me all the time." You know, like they've made a boogeyman in their head, and so they hear what we're saying, think, "Oh yeah, we're totally talking about me." It's like we're not. But unfortunately, I feel like I do see the pushback on this, is that there's like an active like co-op on revolution by right wingers, which
Yeah.
I think if that happens, that's really bad news for us in America. Like the thing that's keeping America not completely fucked is that revolution is still seen as a mostly leftist thing,
Mhm.
more than right wing. I don't know if the right wing will ever co-op revolution though, because I saw a post about this. I don't know if it was Reddit or like in a comment section of a news article, but when left people talk about revolution, we are specifically talking about revolutioning against a system that we know for sure is hurting us. Like we know our target of what that revolution is and what needs to change. The right wingers don't have a target. They don't have a goal. Every single enemy that they have is made up. It's not there. They'll say, "Oh, it's the gay menace. Doesn't exist." They'll say, "Oh, well, it's leftists that control the country. Leftists don't control the country."
Yeah.
They'll say it's the government who's trying to hurt right wingers. The government's not trying to hurt right wingers. Like they have nothing to fight against. There is no revolution for them because they don't even know what they're fighting against. Like, um, it's funny. This is perfect timing because we saw Jojo Rabbit the other day,
Yeah.
and that scene, it was Commander K.
Yeah.
Like he's just shooting at nothing
Mhm.
while dressed up all glorified, thinking he's doing something.
Yeah.
That's what a right winger is in America. Like there was
Completely.
literally, I think it was a thing a couple of weeks ago. Like some right wingers on TikTok were like trying to say we should start a civil war, and they were like standing outside of like a federal building to stop the raid on Trump's house
Yeah.
or something like that. And it's like, so what? You gonna fight in like an FBI building, expect to not get some shit for it? Like, do you think
Well,
that's
they
just what you're
do.
gonna do?
Completely. They do. Just like on January 6th, they went in there and they were shocked and surprised that they were actually arrested for staging a raid on Capitol Hill. It was just ridiculous, but that's what they do because they're so used to not actually being opposed. And
But
I think
that's
deep
true.
down
But
you're right. They realize that they're not actually being oppressed by the system. They're being oppressed by the people that the system is oppressing, and they are the system.
yeah, it's like well, when I saw that, it's like they mentioned like, oh, we're gonna stop the wokies or whatever. It's like that, and it's like that's not a target. You don't
Yeah.
know what you're talking about. You keep having this mental image in your head that because you're so terminally online or you're on Twitter too much, that someone calling you a racist means that the entire world's against you. Instead of taking that as, someone called me a racist. Maybe I should like think about why. You know, like I remember when I was younger, if I was called out something, I'd be like, Huh, well, why was I called that? Let me have some introspection. Like, at the very least, I think that's also come with how I was raised. I was raised by really empathetic people, people that cared, and people that would teach me to be better. And I had friends who would teach me how to be better. So, of course, if something happened, if I fucked up, said something wrong, I would self reflect and I'd have that humility. But a lot of right wingers, I don't know if it's like just a growing up problem, an environmental problem, or whatever, but like they don't have that kind of awareness to even have that
Yeah.
level of introspection. Um, and I feel like, have you watched, damn it, what's his name? Uh,
Well, while you think of it,
so you
I'm
didn't
sure
watch.
I'm sure I said it a lot better earlier. I wanted to apologize to you for insinuating that like you personally need to be armed.
Oh
That
no, no,
there
no,
are going to be, you
I didn't
know,
take offense to that.
yeah. Just as long as like enough a large enough proportion of the um the at-risk population, the targeted population is armed and able to defend themselves, then that's all that's needed. So there might be, other black folks who are armed and are able to defend themselves from these
I
fucking
was going to
Nazis.
ask, have you ever heard of FB Signifier on YouTube?
Yes, I have.
Yes. So he's currently making this video, this like video series called the Manosphere, where
Oh,
it's
good.
basically like talking about these typically right wing leaning men figures and why these people so easily corrupt a lot of men in this country or even the world. And I think that comes down to like to people who don't have a system like I had, which is a good family and good friends. They go for these father type figures who come off as like, oh, we're strong, independent men fighting
Hmm.
against woke or whatever. And that is appealing for a man who does not have a good support system and needs to have their ego boosted. And so they fall into that sphere
Yeah,
and come out really extremist. Now, again, thankfully, I have a system. I grew up with like my mom, my nana, and my granddad. So I grew up with two women
nice,
and one man, right? So
wonderful.
it's like there's not a misogynistic bone in my body, like there never has been. Um, so it's like I had a better chance of growing up in a more supportive system, while other people who don't have that thing, they will easily fall for these people who. And again, the video is like it's not meant to be like, oh, boo-hoo for them. It's more to kind of have an understanding as to why it happens. Um,
Hmm.
and so it's like there is a bit of pity, but there's definitely a line because there are people who escape that
Yeah,
and they get better. It's like my whole thing is if you're at a point where you're flying a Nazi flag, that's like it's too for me personally, that's too far gone.
yeah.
Like
But
that's
and
at a
on that
point where
note,
it's
what
like
kind of person is going to be flying a Nazi flag? You said people with very few supports, but what do they need those supports for?
it's kind of that thing where it's like, I believe in second chances. I've fucked up a lot. I've learned and stuff, but there's definitely a line. And
Hmm.
I've learned recently that no one, excuse me, no one is under any obligation to help someone else if they are at a point where it's like, you know what, I feel too uncomfortable and feel too in danger to even associate with you. Like, there's no obligation to help that person. You
There's a
know what I mean?
bit of a contradiction from something you were talking about earlier, though, and that is mental health. You said that gun control should take the form of more stringent controls for people with mental health difficulties that would prohibit them in any reasonable system from
Yeah.
um, from owning firearms, from owning ammunition. Now,
Hmm.
those are the kinds of people that also happen to make fantastic domestic terrorists.
So here's the thing, right? I think I mean on a more that's a good point you caught me on that was that
Mhm.
I guess I mean like on a personal level, like if you know someone individually who you've been trying to like
Oh, for sure.
steer off that path, you as an individual are under no obligation to help them if you're at a point where you're like, you know what, this is too much. You're going down a dangerous path. I don't want to be associated with it.
Mhm.
But you're right. I do wish there were more avenues. I wish there was like this greater delving into denazifying America
Yeah.
or like American youth, if that was ever to be a thing of like,
Mhm.
if there was like more budget into mental health care, there should be like just this big campaign, people just being like, okay, look, there's a Nazi problem in this country, and we need to denazify a lot of people, and we need to we need to have trained professionals help these people who are willing to get that help and being like, "Hey, I've fallen down a pipeline. Like, how do I get out?"
Just
And while
tell
there are a lot of leftist YouTubers who do go into the pipeline and like discuss how to get out of it, a lot of people don't watch those leftist YouTubers
no.
because they've been fed bullshit by the right wing, being that those left wingers are just trying to hurt you. You know, like they're not even going to be interested in even watching a video, even when the video comes off as like really rational and like logical and stuff. They've already painted anyone that doesn't agree with them as just being inherently bad
Mhm.
and won't listen to them.
Yeah, they've been put in a box. I wanted to make a really bad joke. You said that America needs to be denazified. And I was going to say, just tell Putin to come and invade. That's what he's been doing, isn't it? It's a
I mean, I
terrible,
doubt
terrible
it would
joke. I'm
be
sorry.
any better.
But yeah,
it's
you have to
it
think of why hasn't America done this? Why hasn't America actually put an effort into the mental health supports needed to denazify America? Why hasn't it put any effort whatsoever into denazifying Americans? Because these Nazis, these domestic terrorists, actually serve the system. They serve the desires, they serve the needs of corporate America. So that's why they will have no problem whatsoever with the mentally ill acquiring firearms. They'll have no problem whatsoever with bad people in general acquiring firearms. They'll have no problem whatsoever with these people going on with their firearms without receiving any sort of mental health support. Right.
and so here's like the thing on that is that well, okay, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's just like it's not just the corporations that are doing it. It's
No.
also the politicians who are like straight up Nazis. I mean, for fuck's sake, I could talk for a long
Mm-hmm.
time about why I will never want to go to Florida because of a certain governor there. You know, I could go off for a long time about that and how he's like Trump with a brain and how
Yeah.
that's completely dangerous. And it's just like there's way too many, like I said, there's corporate interests, but I also do believe that it is just straight up Nazis in power with these corporate interests. I remember seeing a video, I think it was by Sarah V, how, you know, like the algorithm, especially on Twitter, it loves some fights.
Oh
It
yes.
loves some battling out, loves some duking out, some retweets, some quote tweeting. It loves it. It loves that discourse. And so it's like, you know, me, I try to follow like literally even on an account that I use for adulting, I'll still find some shit that's like, why is this here? This isn't what I like. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's clear something that's meant to like get me a little riled up.
Yep.
Um, but it's not only that, but it's like it's the fighting against right wing, and it's a lot of infighting. Now, with the infighting with left people, I've heard that it's like it's a point of like, well, how can leftism even succeed in America if there's all this infighting? To me, there's like a slight positive to that, and like the smallest way of meaning that, like with conservatives, they very much are they're acting like a hive mind at this point. Like they don't really have an individual sense of thought. They're pretty much just like, is this anti woke? Is this anti this? Then I'm all for it. Like
Yeah.
they don't even think about it. At least with leftism, there's enough individuality to where like there is fighting because people have different views. And it's like, well, at least people have an individual train of thought.
Mm-hmm.
Like at least you have that. Now,
That's
like
the
the
basis of
infighting,
the dichotomy between conservatism and progressivism, right? There's only one way to stay the same, but there's a million ways to progress from that.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like at least there's that individual thinking. Like I'm cool with that. It's just
Mhm.
the fighting I don't really care for.
I don't think
And
there's much fighting. I think people overblow how much fighting there is. You see it on the internet because Reddit anarchism is weird when it comes down to it, and some, Reddit other things are weird too. And you have, like
oh,
the Center for what is it? Center for Political Innovation is fucking weird. Like you get weirdos. But as far as
yeah,
the mainstream and the two major factions being Marxist Leninists, Marxists, I guess, in general, and anarchists, they tend to get along when you get the hell off Reddit. Leftist
yeah,
infighting is kind of a boogeyman. It's not really a thing.
and that's true. That's a good thing to bring up. I
Hmm.
guess I'm not much on Reddit a lot. I'm on Twitter a lot.
Twitter's even
What I
worse.
see, Twitter is definitely worse. Twitter is this weird thing where this is like I saw someone notice this pattern. It's really weird. Um, it's basically a lot of younger people coming up identifying as leftist, right?
Yeah.
But they have some really fucky politics that do not align with that. For example, um, there sometimes it's like a circle, right? There's like a circle of the Twitter discourse, and part
Hmm.
of that circle is discourse of anti-kink or how
Right.
stop being so degenerate, stuff like that.
Hmm.
And what it basically is that there are people. These are people who have like stuff in their bios, like I'm ACAB, I'm pro this, I'm pro that, I'm pro LGBTQ, right? And yet, when they talk about things like kink or adult topics, clearly stuff that is specifically for adults, they will come in and be like, "This kink is wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. We have to keep things, um, you know, presentable." Which, I'm about to go into a second as to why it's a bad thing. Um, it's all about presenting right, optics, stuff like
Right.
that, and they don't realize how it's like, hmm. So you're saying we should be friendly to corporations who have notoriously never been pro LGBTQ anything. That's what you're trying
Hmm.
to say. It's like you're basically doing that thing of like trying to look nice for people that don't care about you.
Yep.
And someone mentioned that it's like it's this thing where they think their theory is that it's a lot of center left people, like middle aged people, like telling younger people that this is what leftism is or something like that, or like trying to ingrain their beliefs into
Hmm.
them and make them think that this is the progressive way to think, which is like just kind of being like pro corporate and optics and stuff like that, like still be progressive but also remember keep things family friendly and stuff like that. And it's just like, guys, you realize at the end of the day these corporations don't care, right? Like
Yeah.
the whole reason why, like, as I've gotten older and I've started to talk to more people, why I'm like so pro kink and pro don't be friendly to corporations is that I've seen it over and over again.
Hmm.
I've been on the internet for a long time. I've seen that cycle. July comes in, rainbows. End of July, no, June. See, I can't remember the month correctly.
Yeah.
June, rainbows. End of June, nothing. Um, Hell, the Black Lives Matter thing was like, blew my mind because I was still about to get left. Not yet. I was on left. And then when I saw the corporations have those things like, oh, we'll have the black boxes on our profiles. We'll have like a fist in our thing, right? And then you hear about how they're also funding a lot of police organizations and shit. It's
Yep.
like, well, fuck you guys. It's like
Yeah, exactly.
especially with Disney. Disney gets on my nerves with that shit. But I remember they they had the Black Lives Matter thing on their profile, right?
Hmm.
Um, then there was that live action Mulan movie that came out,
Oh God.
and then you hear about how they filmed part of that movie near the concentration camps in China.
Hmm.
And it's like, it's not really it's not really aligning with the whole Black Lives Matter thing and being critical of police when you're filming your stuff near that shit. Like this is like that does not make much sense to me, Disney. Um, so it's like there are leftists who I think they're not. They need to get their shit together. I think like they want to do good, but I feel like they have a really like liberal take on things, or a really like
Yeah, because
pro corporate take on things that
that
I
makes
feel
them
like
not
they're
leftists.
not they're not there yet. Like
Yeah.
they're trying to be, but they're not there yet. That's why I've always, even like in my edgy phase, I always liked SJWs more than anti SJWs.
Hmm.
Because at least with SJWs, would they sometimes be off the mark a little bit, or like they wouldn't really know what they're doing? Maybe, but they had a good heart. They want to do right. They just don't really know how to do it yet. Whereas with an anti SJW, they're just like dickheads. Like even I knew that. Like they're just being dicks. Like,
Hmm.
I knew the key difference. Someone's trying to do good, and the other's just trying to be a dick. Like at least the person that's trying to do good is trying. So like I'll always support them over the other. So I feel like with those kind of leftist liberals, they need a little help. They need a little help, like actually understanding what they're doing,
Yeah.
and like not to appease the corporations as much as they do.
And I would like to caution you that these people aren't leftists. You're saying they're pro corporation or they're worried about how corporations will view them. They're not leftists. You're not a leftist unless you are pro revolution.
Mm.
That's not like that's you're not a leftist just because you are pro an SJW, as you said, you're pro LGBT. You care about poor people and you think that the poor people should get more money. That doesn't make you a leftist. It makes you a liberal. Those are two different things. The liberal wants to keep the system the same, the way it is, and just make it better. Keep the capitalism, but make it nicer capitalism. Leftism says fuck capitalism, period. Corporatists don't like us, good, right? So that's the big difference. And I would caution against saying that they're leftists because not only are they not, but saying that they are can be difficult for reasons that you touched on in the beginning of that discussion. Was you saw that as leftist infighting. You saw that as the leftists saying that kink is bad, but leftists aren't saying that kink is bad, at least not very many of them. Liberals
That's
are saying kink is bad, right? Those are very, very different.
Yeah, that's a good point. I should definitely make that clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's basically, I guess it would be like me. Like it's like when I was a liberal that didn't really I didn't fully commit to like being as leftist as I wanted to be. I
Mm-hmm.
thought I was, but then I meet more people outside of that space, and I guess
We have
again
our
it's
own
just
rabbit
like,
hole for sure.
yeah, it's like for me, I've always been like someone that cared and wanted people to be okay, but I never knew the right words for it. Basically, I feel like my progressivism at the time, like I guess I was too progressive even for that time too. Like I just didn't know. Now, mind you, I didn't even know about transgender people until I became 18.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that I remember I used to use some slurs when I was a teenager as
Yep.
far as that, or I just thought like it was just like, oh, it's just a category for porn or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know any better. And then when I turned 18 and I joined the furry community, I started meeting people from all ways of life,
Yep.
including trans people, and I learned so much just from that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in my way, you said this, we each go down our own path. I think getting into the furry fandom was kind of like that first step in like actually being a leftist, because of so many walks of life I would see and knowing so many other people from all over. Like that definitely helped
Yep.
with me becoming more leftist, because I've been with people who were more leftist than me. They actually were leftist,
Yeah.
and taught me and stuff. And then 2020 happened. And I feel like it wasn't just furry fandom, but it was just like 2020, just like the societal impact and seeing right in my face things just going up, just turning out. It's like I mentioned to you before that it very much was like an eldritch truth being revealed to me, like just
Mm-hmm.
like the true madness of the world being revealed to me. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, my idea of progressivism is not enough. It's
Yeah.
just like, I learned and I talked to other people and realized a lot of my friends ended up being leftist. They ended up
Mm-hmm.
being leftists of their own flavor. And, I had a lot of talks. I loved educating myself about that kind of thing. And yeah, I guess like I guess if you were to call me some kind of left stuff, I guess I never read the text. So I don't really know if I'd even be appropriate for me to call myself a Marxist or Leninist. I just say leftist as a way to, keep it safe. Um, and if people want to know more about that, they just have to talk to me and realize, oh, you're probably this or whatever that. I don't know.
Most people, I would say, don't read the texts. They're hard to get into. They are old. They are dusty. They're written in archaic language. They're translated for one thing, and it's hard. People, not only is it hard, just as far as having the I guess the intellectual capacity and often the education to understand this stuff,
Mhm.
but also just the energy, the spoons for it. It actually kind
Yeah.
of bothers me when people get into, you need to read you need to read the texts, you need to read the leftist lore, read Marx, read Engels, read Lenin, read Kautsky, read anarchist texts, Kropotkin, all of these things. And it's like, who has the time to read that? Make me a list of the kinds of people who have the time and the energy to read that, and I will show you a list of the people who don't need leftism. These are not the people who are under fire so much from the system. These are the people you're railing against, the people that you're saying you're protecting. You're saying you haven't read X, Y, Z, Alpha, Beta, right? You're not a real leftist. It's like, okay, well, it turns out I guess the real leftists are the bourgeoisie, or at least the petite bourgeoisie, who have the time and the energy and the education to read these things and understand them.
Yeah. And see, my thing is, the conversation that we're having right now, just to let everyone know on YouTube, since you're seeing me right now, I'm not a scholar. I am not a college graduate. I never finished college myself. Um, the way I've learned about all this and educated myself was
Mhm.
talking to people and, you know, just paying attention to the news, just seeing shit and talking to people is how I've learned. No, mind you, yeah, I never read the text. I never got into like, social politics in college and stuff like that. I am not like an educated individual, quote unquote. I can't make quotes because my avatar won't allow me to do it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not like that kind of educated individual, but I don't have to be to know that my heart is set on I don't just want the system to be better. I want the system to not be here because the system is so
Mhm.
fucked that you can't fix it. Like I've seen it now ever since 2020 and onward. Like I was before that I was reformed, but now I'm just like you can't reform this.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could even fix this. Like the foundation's all fucky. Like how are you gonna build another house on a foundation that's already rotted out?
Mhm.
Like it's not going to work. Um, and a part of that foundation is Nazism. As I learned recently, it's like, hey, Hitler got inspired by us for fuck's sake. Like
Yeah.
he, he saw what we did to all kinds of races, and it's like, like it's like at that point you got to think to yourself, shit, if my country inspired someone like him, hmm, that's not a good look.
And
Not
then
a good look
one.
at all. And then
Yeah.
it's like that's probably not a good thing that
And
we
hired his
inspired.
same employees.
Exactly.
Used
And then
Hitler
it's
as
like,
a
oh,
reference.
and then it's like, oh, and we still have his flags flying in our country today.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a Nazi flag and a Confederate flag fly in the Capitol. Like, that's not good, guys. That's not
Yep.
good. And I do think that education does play a part, though, because unfortunately, with my education, I learned about racism and the treatment of Native Americans and stuff, but I didn't learn the massive extent of that hatred until I
Mhm.
was an adult. For example, have you ever heard that show on HBO, the Watchmen, right? Um, it was a series on HBO that was meant to be like a sequel to like the original Watchmen
Oh, okay.
comics.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the beginning of that show was a scene in like a town of black people where it got bombed and massacred by white supremacists. And people thought that, oh, well, this show is like historical fiction. So it's like they thought that was part of the fiction, except it wasn't. That was the Tulsa riots, the
Oh,
Tulsa massacre. Like that whole scene was representing the Tulsa massacre as it was.
and people weren't even aware.
People learned it from the show. They never
Yeah.
even heard about it in their schools.
Yeah, of course.
That's how they learned it, was through the show, because they thought it was fictional because it sounded so insane. And then they learned, nope, that happened. Bombs were dropped on soil of Black Americans because they got too wealthy, and white people didn't like that.
Mhm.
And like it shocked me and a lot of people that this was our first time hearing about it, was through a TV show and not through just our own education system. Like
Yeah.
they just never went over that, or the extent of just how brutal Trail of Tears were. Like we learned about the Trail of Tears, sure, but we didn't know how brutal it was, how
No.
just absolutely terrible it was. Or fucking Christopher Columbus. We never learned how messed up
God.
Christopher Columbus was until I
Yeah.
got into high school. No, actually, not even then. When I got out of high school, I realized how fucked up Christopher Columbus was. You know, it's like, so the education system in America, especially because I don't know if you're seeing it now, but there definitely is book bannings going on in America right now in
Yep.
certain states, and it's like that needs to change too. Not just change, but like be completely overhauled into something different that's not being ruled by these politicians. Because a lot of these politicians should not be having their hands in education, because a lot of them are corrupt and want to push a certain history that's more comfortable with what they believe in.
Yeah.
um they want to ban books that, there was a thing in Florida where like they're trying to ban books that were like, in their words, woke. It's like, what the fuck are you even talking about? How can
Yeah.
math be woke or
That they're
something like
actually
that?
using that within actual political discourse, the word woke, as
I
a
mean,
pejorative. It's
well,
incredible.
you know what's funny is that a Florida judge like kind of like put a halt around his sentences Stop Woke Act, because
Yeah. Yeah.
even
I
he
remember that.
knew that it was like, what the fuck is this? Like they
Yeah.
even was like, it's just, it's ridiculous. But like, you know, the education system, people are learning more from either fiction or just like from outside sources instead of in the classroom like they should have been learning. Um, like, you know, I learned about racism in America. I didn't know how it was racist to literally everyone that wasn't like white and quote unquote American. Like I
Mhm.
never knew about Irish racism or Scottish racism or racism against like people who literally look the same as all the white people, but it's just like, oh, you have a different religion or something like that. Like I never knew about that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, until I got older out of school. And so it's like, a part of me, when we mention America being fucked, I do think it's fucked in one way, because there was a lot of kids who are being victims to this erasure of history.
Yeah.
Like, and like I told you before, my way of getting taught, it was light on all the oppressive shit. I got taught it, but it wasn't enough. I can only imagine how much little a lot of these kids are learning now as opposed to what I did. Like what I learned was already not so much. Now these kids are uh, being like dictated on how to think and learn, and not even learn racism or learn what racism is, or be critical of their own
Yeah.
country. Like
Because now it's
I do,
critical race theory. This is something that shouldn't be taught. We
I
put a
do
name on it, therefore it's
legitimately,
bad.
yeah, I do legitimately worry about that, or that, you know, there are a lot of kids who they're being taught in schools where they won't even let teachers who are gay say that they're gay.
Yeah.
Just like being completely brainwashed into being stupid. And the thing is, I remember having a conversation with people, because you know, being a furry, I end up meeting people from all over the world, and I'd
Mhm.
have conversation with them about my school life. And I didn't realize how bad it was until I
Oh,
told
yeah.
someone who was from the UK or something like that about how we'd pledge allegiance to the flag every day. And we'd stop whatever we're doing to pledge allegiance to the flag, to the national anthem, whatever. And they'd say to me like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's what we used to do." And they were kind of like, they were legitimately confused, because they was like, That's brainwashing, Dev." I'm like, "Oh shit." It's just
Oh, wait, it is. You're right.
it's
Wow.
like,
I've been
it's,
brainwashed. How did that
yeah,
happen?
it's like when they said that to me, I'm like, I kept thinking about it. I'm like, well, they didn't make us do it every day. And it was like kind of like programming in our heads to do it on command. If they could have said, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's just like, they kind of like, oh, well, fuck, I guess I was brainwashed. And thinking back on a lot of it, it wasn't just like the Pledge of Allegiance, but like the national anthem,
Hmm.
hand over the heart, stand up, like stuff. Stop whatever you're doing to say the pledge. Like I remember people would be walking down the hall in schools, and if the Pledge of Allegiance thing was being said over the intercom, they would just stop in a random classroom just to put their heart against the hand against their heart in front of the flag in that classroom.
Yeah.
Like they didn't want to be without being in the room without the flag. Um, it's like this blind loyalty to
Hmm.
a country that I didn't realize just never gave a fuck about me. And I think it even made it more powerful. Just like, we saw like the first thing about Colin Kaepernick kneeling at the national anthem and how attacked he was for doing that,
Yeah.
simply for using his freedom of speech to show his displeasure with the government and how he was attacked on that. And then, you know, people was like, respect the flag, respect the flag. And then I see, well, as someone who is immune compromised, which means that I'm more susceptible to have really negative reaction to getting sick a lot
Hmm.
because I've had a history of asthma and I even had pneumonia when I was a kid, so my lungs aren't the best. When I saw during the COVID times, well, it's still COVID times, but the peak of COVID
The
times,
official COVID times.
yeah, the official COVID times TM, when it was this kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but it was this feeling of, well, if you're immunocompromised, well, you can stay inside, but we'll go outside and have fun and do whatever. It was this feeling of just like, wow, um, there is a disturbingly large amount of people in this country who, if I died of COVID and became a statistic, they would say that it's not real, that I don't exist, or that
Yeah.
it was fake. Like there are people who legitimately just do not care about people like me. And it hurt. It hurt for a long time to come to that conclusion, especially because when the election results came in 2020, and I saw the amount of people who voted for Trump, it was like a 50-50 split almost.
Yeah.
Like that number never left my head. It still has left my head. Seeing that big a number of people okay with all of that, it legitimately hurt me. I was happy that Biden won. Not really. I'm happy that Trump lost. Put it like that. I was happy that
Yeah.
Trump lost because I was definitely I was definitely siding on Bernie. Um, but I was happy Trump lost. Not happy that Biden won. But seeing that number of the people who still voted for Trump, even if he didn't win, that number was way too high. That's
Hmm.
like that tells me that like there's a good half of my own home that doesn't care about me, and that's how I really got further radicalized. Was realizing like just how fucked that is. That they saw for 4 years what this man did and allowed, and the kind of people that rallied behind him, and they still didn't care.
It's that brainwashing.
Yeah, it is. It really did kind of stop me in my tracks. And then like I said, the insurrection the following month, the following 2 months was like the nail in the coffin. Like that's when I was truly done. It's funny because when I was younger, and mind you, I was a teenager, so was this friend of mine. This friend of mine said that his family was opposed Republicans, and I said, "Well, my family's Democrat. We voted for Obama." And I was like, "Well, we can still be friends." And mind you, he didn't know what the hell he was doing. And I didn't know much either. We just knew that we believed in the politics our parents believed in.
Right.
Um, but I get the feeling that compared to then, if I knew that guy now, and he told me, "Hey, I voted for Trump," I wouldn't be friends with him
Yeah.
because previous me was like, "Oh, well, we can still be friends despite political differences." But then as I learned over the years, and I just learned about not only that, but myself, is that politics mean a lot to me, especially as someone who is of my color, who's of my orientation, who is of my political leaning. I don't have the luxury to ignore politics or
Hmm.
ignore what's happening. I don't have that luxury. I just don't. And if I did have luxury, I'm not only privileged, but I'm being ignorant when I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because as someone who's of my personality, of my group ethnicity, I need to be responsible with the information that I get and help other people like me. Like, I feel like I am obligated to help other people like me. I feel like if I didn't, that's a waste on my side. So politics mean a lot to me. People's ethics mean a lot to me. Their morals, who they support, means a lot to me because there are people right now who, if they had their way, they would literally pass laws to get people like me killed
Yeah.
on the street if they wanted to. I mean, I've told you before about politicians who would openly state, like saying, like we should make laws about killing gay people or
Yeah.
letting black people be arrested by police. And so if someone came up to me and said, "Hey, can we be friends? And by the way, I voted Trump or I voted DeSantis or whatever," I wouldn't be friends with them because I've
No.
learned to not have that patience for that anymore. Because why should I respect you or be friends with you when you are supporting someone who wants to hurt me? That doesn't make any sense. I just saw the one of Cavernacle's new vids, how he's mentioned that a lot of Americans see politics as a sports team, as a way to just, oh, you just pick a side. It doesn't have anything to do with your personal beliefs. And it's like he was right. There's a lot of Americans who will think that, oh, my politics don't really align to what I actually believe in. And it's like I learned
Mhm.
that's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. You cannot, like, you literally cannot, like, say you're a nice person and yet you're voting for people who would want to take away the rights of people who did nothing wrong. Like, I'm sorry, but you can't make that. You can't lie to yourself like that. Because if you're putting the time to get up, go to a polling station,
Yeah.
and put the name in of someone that you know is hurting another minority, that says everything about you. That you took the time to put that person's name in.
Yeah.
Like you can say all you want that it doesn't, but you got up, you went to that polling station, you put the guy's name in that you knew, or if you didn't know, it's even worse that they're hurting someone and you did it anyway.
Yeah.
Like that's commitment to someone that's shitty, and I'm not for that. I ain't for that. And I'm sorry, I'm feel like I'm speaking a lot. I hope I haven't been talking over you or anything.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And it is, you're right. It's not just like a sports team because you don't get up and take time out of your day and go to the polling stations, which can be a stressful experience in the United States, I've heard,
Mhm.
to go and vote for somebody. It's not the same as just turning on your television and rooting for X team, Y team that you you would have been watching the game anyway because you enjoy the game. People don't enjoy politics. People don't enjoy turning on the news and hearing about politics so much if they aren't
Yeah.
invested already in one side or another. So I would agree with you and strongly disagree that it's not just like having a sports team.
Mm.
It might have been a little bit more like it once upon a time, and I wanted to get to that. You said that when Obama was running and you had a friend who voted for McCain, or whose family rather voted for McCain, and you aligned that way, and you're like, well, we can still be friends. And you say you
I
evolved
think it
beyond
was
that, but I
it was
think, sorry, what was that?
Mitt Romney. It was Mitt Romney that he voted for. That was
Oh,
the
Romney. Okay.
American one. Yeah, but yeah,
Right,
go on.
that's right. Obama ran twice. What am I talking about? There are presidents who've been presidents twice. Did you know that? Um, but yeah, I think politics, not just you, has evolved past that because
Mhm.
I guess Romney was kind of along that way, but I was thinking even McCain. Obama versus McCain wasn't so much fascism versus not fascism. It was just America versus America to a great extent, right? It was Democrats
Yeah,
versus
and
Republicans.
it's funny
Romney
because
was a
he
little bit more down that line, but it still was, and we still weren't so used to the idea that we have somebody running for president who actually is actively racist and actively wants to discriminate against people and
yeah,
will
like, it's
speak out
funny
and say
because
that
like,
stuff. Whereas nowadays you
McCain
definitely
compared
do.
oh, yeah, I was just saying, like, McCain compared to a lot of conservatives today, like, he was pretty tame
Oh yeah.
when you look back on that, like, so, yeah, it was definitely
Hmm.
the stakes weren't as high, you know,
Yeah. So yeah, and like
like
even now, if I met somebody who said they voted for McCain, I'd be like, okay, sure. Who'd you vote for this time?
mhm,
I
mhm,
don't care that you
yeah.
voted for McCain. I care about who you just voted for now.
Yeah, like, speak up, please.
Yeah.
Tell me who you voted for in 2016.
Hmm.
Um, I remember it's funny because I remember, I was, my family and I, us being black, we were really happy that Obama won because, like, for representation, showing that hey, people like us can get to that high of office. That was a great moment. Um,
Mhm.
when it got to Trump winning, here's the thing, right? I was never on the team of Hillary's just as bad,
Oh God.
in a way, I'm still not on team. I still don't fully believe in Democrats being as bad as Republicans. I don't believe that.
No.
I believe that Democrats don't do enough to stop it and are kind of complacent, but I do not think they're on the same level. That's absolutely ridiculous. So when Hillary was running, I voted for her. Not, 'cause she wasn't like I wasn't like a big proponent for her, but it's like, hey, it's not this failed billionaire who's saying a bunch of racist shit and is a creep and shit.
Mhm.
I'd much rather vote for Hillary than vote for this clown.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like, yeah, I never believed the whole thing. Oh, Hillary's just going to lead us to World War III or whatever. When it's like kind of ironic when you consider who kept saying shit that was getting us in trouble all the time. But like, yeah, and then when he won, as we mentioned before, with John McCain, it was kind of like, ah, it's whatever. And so when Trump won, I saw people having that same attitude as if it was like a McCain win. And I told them, like, no, like,
Mhm.
this is legitimately bad. This is really bad. And I was scared. I remember I remember so clearly how there were people who are our friends that were trans who
Yeah.
needed to have their friends talk to them and call them to be like, it's gonna
Mhm.
be okay because they were panicking. Like
Yeah.
legit, it's like fearing for their lives
I
because they saw the writing on the wall.
Mhm.
When there was that viral video of that girl screaming no in the streets, and that got joked about and mean because like, oh, look at this woman overreacting about Trump winning. And I saw that video and I was like, no, no,
That seems like a pretty rational reaction to me. I had people call
she has
me
a
too
point.
up here in Canada, like physically called dialing my number that I'd given them to use in emergencies, and they called me when we were watching the election. Yeah.
I remember a lot of my friends in the UK when Boris Johnson won, they were like, do not let Trump do it. Because a lot of people, because they said to me, like, listen, we Brits, we didn't think Boris would actually win, and then he did.
Yeah.
Don't let that same thing happen over in the States.
Right.
And then when it happened, I had a lot of my UK friends saying, I am so sorry. Like, they weren't even trying to wipe in my face. They were just like, I am sorry.
Mhm.
Just like truly feeling that sense of like dread when they saw what happened. And I feel like for that kind of reaction to happen, it's like, yeah, that's not normal for a presidency to strike that much fear and anxiety into a people.
Yeah.
Um, and what sucks is that every single thing that we warned about, everything, it happened. Even now it's
Mhm.
happening. It's not even in the house anymore.
Yeah.
And as much as it is, like I mentioned before, and I told you so moment, it's a moment that I didn't wish I had to do because too many people got harmed and felt stressed and hurt during that for me to even take glee in being like, yeah, I told you so. Like, I don't take glee in this. I don't take glee
No.
in seeing that a lot of my 20s, and this is why I've had resentment over. A lot of my 20s have been spent being stressed. I feel like a lot of my 20s don't belong
Yep.
to me. They were stolen from me. I was spent stressing about the presidency. 2020 to 2022 is literally a blur to me at points.
Mhm.
The whole year 2020 just doesn't feel real to me at sometimes that it happened. Um, and it's just like I sometimes forget that's like, oh yeah, 2020 happened 2 years ago. Like I forget about that.
Mhm.
Time feels strange to me
COVID
because
did that to a lot of people, I think.
not only did like this presidency fuck me up, but like the leadership for COVID and then CDC bending to a lot of corporations' needs
Yeah.
led to so many deaths. And it's just like I feel like I genuinely feel like this country is beyond traumatized and like
Mhm.
kind of mentally broken because we have not even had truly a time to reflect on just how bad the past 8 years have been.
Mhm.
Like, there really just hasn't been that, like, just moment to be like, "Look, we had a really fucked up president, and he not only that, but he horribly led a global pandemic that got millions of us killed." Like, that conversation, I feel like if there was a way to unfuck America, the first step would be having that conversation. That really blatant conversation of like, "Look, here's what happened the past 8 years, and here's why those past 8 years were not okay." Even if that's being said by a liberal, I feel like someone on a public stage, on a national stage, saying that and saying that these past 8 years were fucked would be like the one little tiny step towards, okay, we've had some kind of admittance, except the first part of getting help is admitting that you have a problem. And I feel like America just needs that one moment to just admit we are fucked. But unfortunately, there are to be pro America is to just love America unconditionally, no matter what. And if someone were to get up on stage and say that, if they even were allowed to get on stage and say that, um, it would be met with a lot of criticism. But I do think that the sentiment that America is fucked is becoming so popular now because the average Joes like me are seeing it. You know, it's not enough for like people who like are more the bourgeois leftists, I guess, to see it. But it's just like the average Joe seeing
Yeah.
that, oh yeah, these all these hours that I work, all this time that I spend to put into the economy doesn't do shit. And they're trying to find out, okay, what the fuck do I do? Then they start seeing other leftists who are just like, hey, so here's why I think that you might be leftist and you might be less than you think. And like they talk to you and they have conversations with you. So it's like there is a bit of hope that leftism is more popular now, especially with the age of the internet,
Yep.
that it's spreading so rapidly that it's like it's not as much of a boogeyman as it was before. I guess is what
Mhm.
I'm trying to say. Like it still is to a lot of people, but to people who are just and even though I don't like debate bros, like a lot of them, they are spreading leftism to some extent. Now, mind you, I learned some leftism from debate bros, but I ended up learning my own thing and kind of getting away from that sphere. But like, there is some worth to it. It's just like it's a slow process. And I think when it comes to wondering if America is truly fucked, I believe it, and yet there's just I guess it's brainwashed in me. It's that dumb American hope. It's that um hey, it's not the end for us. Now, of course, again, that's what I've probably been brainwashed to believe, but now I apply it in a different light. Not for being pro capital or pro liberal, but like an actual betterness, a new way of thinking, a new way of life. But I don't know if I'll ever see it in my lifetime, to be honest. I don't think I'll ever see it in my lifetime. Um, I know that um, I would have said my kid's lifetime, but as I ended up getting older and seeing just how much money would cost to raise a kid, and then seeing the environment that a kid would have to grow up in, it's like, why would I bring up a kid like that in this? I don't know why I would do that, and I legitimately do feel sorry for a lot of kids who I feel like their childhoods, their high schools are going to be stolen from them because they're going to have to be really political. And as you said,
Yeah.
politics aren't fun. Like when I mention that I'm a political person, I don't like do it as like a way to be like, man, I love politics. Like, no, because politics are sad and depressing for me. But I'm political because it means a lot to me. And when I talk to people who have a same alignment as me, who understand and like have the same kind of social consciousness and care and empathy,
Mhm.
that is important to me because I cannot vibe with someone who doesn't care or is a right winger. It means a lot to me to have a conversation with someone who understands me and wants to fight with me because that makes me feel like I'm not so alone, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and that's important to me is like feeling that, like, you know what, I'm not alone in this fight. I mean, hell, the server that I'm in with you proves that, like, my views and stuff like that aren't isolated. And
Mhm.
people on the internet prove that there are a lot of people who see what's wrong and they want to fight in their own ways. And to me, that's the little bit of hope I guess, to combat the America is fucked. Now, I will say I think America is fucked currently. I think currently it is very fucked. Um, and to be honest, I tend not to think about 2024 because that I feel like is going to be a really scary year, to be quite honest. Especially because we don't know who's going to be running for presidential, but I have a feeling that it will be DeSantis. And if it is, it's going to be a stressful year. And at least I know that I'll have you and a lot of my friends to help me through it because I feel like I will need that support and just like the people to talk to and listen if I have those days where I'm just like, fuck, what do I do? Um, but yeah, I think that it's America is fucked as is right now. I think long term it can get better. It's just going to take a very, very long time. So that's kind of, I guess, my only combat to your message is that I think America is fucked now. I don't know if it'll be fucked later, if that makes any sense.
If it's fucked now, then it's fucked terminally. You're not going to have any sort of reform. The only thing that is going to unfuck it is a hard reset, a proper revolution. That's the only future that America has is post-revolution. What that revolution looks like is up for grabs. I don't think we're going to see a sort of like, it's not going to be like Cuba. It's not going to be like the USSR. It's not going to, we're not going to have guerrilla warfare like in China. It's going to be something different. But it is going to happen. It's not going to, we're not going to magically elect a Democrat like Bernie Sanders that is just going to make everything better, because the Democrats love the fear that you were talking about that people had of Trump. When Trump came in, people crying and screaming. When Trump almost got in again, people being terrified of the remnants of the alt-right that remain. The Democrats adore that, and so do their corporate donors, because you have the Republicans that say we're going to make things a whole lot worse. So all the Democrats have to do is say we're not going to do that, and they win. We don't have to make anything better. We just have to make things not worse, and we're the good guys. The corporatists love that, because then conservatism is now the left wing as far as they're concerned. The conservative is the liberal. It is left wing. It is, anti-right to be conservative now, to just keep things the same. That's all the Democrats do. They keep things the same. That's why they haven't had that discussion that you're talking about. Nobody has come up and said these last 8 years have sucked. No one has come up and said, hey, we had a president, we had an administration that just killed 1 million people. They're not going to talk about that because it suits them. They already know you're afraid. And talking about that would mean, well, what's the next question? Well, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to make things better? We're not, right? We're not planning on making things better. If you want to make things better, you have to make them better yourself.
Thing I kind of had a daydream about it, but like, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be famous, have a big car and mansion and stuff like that, and all this cool shiny stuff. As you get older, your desires get a lot more tame and reasonable. And one of my desires was, if I were to ever get that famous, that much influence, the first thing I would love to do is get on one of those night shows that everyone watches, like millions of people are watching, and then just spout the most leftist shit possible on live camera. just like, just say it on SJ, because I don't think I've ever even seen a lot of left. I mean, there are a good chunk of leftist celebrities, but they don't really say anything public like that.
They're progressive. They're not really, there's no revolutionary celebrities, we'll say that.
Yeah, there's no
actual leftist celebrities. There's liberals. There's liberal celebrities.
I would say, like, the ones that are leftists, they don't really tend to be celebrities anymore. They just kind of do their own thing. But like, if I had that status of that influence to go on cable television and talk to people, like millions of people at once live, I would love to have that talk that I mentioned, to just be like, hey, so I know everyone's been like thinking I'm kind of a progressive person. Well, yeah, I haven't seen shit yet. And I just like
here's how you make a Molotov cocktail.
We're not trying to get banned from YouTube. Um, but I want to cut that out. But uh, yeah, I would just I'd have the conversation of, hey, past 8 years sucked, and hey, down with the bourgeois, corporations are not your friend, Disney's a fucked up company. I would do all this thing just to say it because unfortunately a lot of the influence is from these celebrities side, people in power. And I feel like if there was just like if I was just that one, just be like, hey, I have all this power now. Let me just be the person to say it. It's in a way it would kind of make leftism mainstream, but then again, I don't know if that would be a benefit because I remember I had a conversation with you about how if uh if leftism were to be mainstream, the corporation would be the one to do it. And we mentioned how with Amazon, let's say that, like, I think if anyone were trying to push like the whole, hey, unions are good, whatever, or something like that, like Amazon would be the one to push it as some new revolutionary thing that doesn't have any leftist hints in it, but they'll take it and be like, hey, we did it, and
Mhm.
come across, oh, they're more progressive than we think. It's this thing where it's like I feel like more people need to really step up. Like the people who say they're leftists, like it's more than just say it online, say it like on Twitch chat. You really gotta like get out there and
Yeah.
say it to a large amount of people. And yeah, is that dangerous? Absolutely. I mean, in recent news with that trans activist Keffels,
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of shit for just being openly leftist and trans.
Mhm.
That's led to a lot of really dangerous things. But I feel like it's either more people say something or we'll just be silent forever. Um, and in a way, I think that there's some kind of revolution happening, and in a way, I think there is kind of a civil war happening too. It's just not with guns or battles or, like you said, fighting.
Yeah.
It's very much a culture war, and right now, this culture war is taking a dangerous turn where the violence is starting to crop up more. And I
Mhm.
feel like it's either going to go one of two ways, in which a lot of minorities will be suppressed, or if you keep backing an animal into a corner, they're going to snap back.
Mhm.
And whether they like it or not, the minorities will fight back in their own ways. And I keep thinking to myself, you have this amount of inflation going up. Yeah, people still getting sick, people not making enough money, people getting threatened every day for just being who they are. And I keep thinking to myself, like, this can't keep going on. Like, something's
Nope.
going to happen. It's going to be a snap. Like, there's all this tension. There's no way the tension's going to last another year. I do not believe it. I think by either later this year or next year, something's going to snap.
Mhm.
Um, and I genuinely hope that it is with leftists finally just like snapping back and be like, nope, enough. That's it. We're done. Like, it's just like gloves off. Let's really start getting some shit done, stopping production completely,
Yep.
like reminding people, hey, we're the ones running these buildings. We can stop it at any time. And if you go and hurt us, that shows more about you than anyone else. Now, another thing that I mentioned, I've talked to you in passing before about it, but like, I was like, well, what could combat America? Thing is, I don't know what possibly could. I remember you mentioned China at one point. Thing is, I don't know if China would be really good either because the CCP,
They're
they
not
have
the
their
best as
own,
far as supporting workers, to
yeah,
be honest.
yeah, or social issues.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
They're not
Russia,
gonna care about the transes.
yeah, and then Russia, we know what Russia is
Well,
like right
Russia
now.
is
So it's
completely
like,
just corporatist. They're what America wants to be.
yeah, so it's like the people that could stop America from being so fucky, well, they really wouldn't stop from making fucky. It would just be a different kind of fucky.
Yeah.
So it's like it would be kind of amazing if, like, I don't know, New Zealand or something stopped America from being so fucky. That would be like some fan fiction level writing or something like that.
Yeah, I'll make a fan
Um,
fiction about Cuba saving America. Fidel Castro once said he'll support the revolution in America. What if that actually happened? We'll make it happen. In a fiction. I don't think Cuba would be able to do shit, unfortunately.
I mean, I honestly think the Great Equalizer is just going to be aliens. Just like and they'll see this and be like, the reason why we didn't stop to see you guys is because Trump was there. We just had no interest in even stopping by because, like, nah, you guys have your own shit to deal with. Like, we're not even none of that. Like I'd actually do believe that if aliens didn't want to see us, they would have seen us by now. But like, they see what's going on here and it's like, nah, nah.
Never mind.
They're not even gonna touch it. It's
We
like
were
you
gonna
guys.
fuck up this world, but it's already fucked up enough as it is.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like I genuinely believe that when 2020 happened, I was like this like Cthulhu could rise from the ocean right now, and
I
like
am
he'd
here
be
to
like,
instate
oh,
slavery and destroy your environment. Oh, wait.
well,
Never
you know
mind.
what's
You
funny
beat me to it. But I know.
is that there is like a Lovecraftian god in the Eldritch fiction named Nyarlathotep. And
Okay.
his whole thing is he loves chaos. He loves seeing the world just like have all kind of discourse and stuff, right? And his
Hmm.
whole thing would be, at least from what I remember, would be to like he'd either disguise himself as people of power or influence people of power, do the most fucked up things, and have people follow that fucked up leader of power
Oh God.
under
Yeah.
his spell. And I'm thinking, I read about him. It's like, shit, we didn't even need him for that.
Yeah.
We didn't even need him for that at all. Like it just happened. So
It
it's
does
like
just happen. Yeah. It's not the
it,
first
it,
time.
it's yeah, it's funny how it's just like so much of fiction just like reflects just what happened on a day to day, and seeing that, I feel like it's one of those things where it's one of those things where, funny enough, I think there will be like a time, probably when we're long gone, there's going to be like a Jojo Rabbit type movie, but about all the shit that happened in America, and
Oh,
like just
definitely.
like truly like, oh yeah,
You see
all the
that
stuff that happened
kids
in
reciting
America.
the Pledge of Allegiance with
Oh
completely
yeah.
heartfelt and running and being so excited to sign up for Boy Scouts and whatever
Hmm.
the fuck, right?
Or having faith that police will keep them safe
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
from shooters. Then the movie just kind of ends with like the really harsh reality, like, yep, this was America,
Kid winds up
and
in a
people
school
thought it was
shooting and
great.
is like, "Oh shit, this didn't work out the way I wanted it to."
Well, what's funny is that like the way that history is framed, I know it's been out of control over it, but like all of that was in black and white, right? So
Mhm.
people will see those pictures and think, black and white, that's otherworldly. That didn't really happen. Like I guess it's kind of this disillusionment. Like, well, if something is in black and white, then that's too long ago for it to apply to us now.
Right.
And it's that ignorance. Like I remember on it was a Twitter post, someone posted an in color picture of Martin Luther King that was previously in black and white.
Yeah.
And it was like meant to just reflect, guys, this was still in color. This wasn't that long ago that it happened. Like it really reflects to you that like this is still our history. This is
Mhm.
still our world. It happened on our world, all this shit. Like, Star Wars in black and white, but that doesn't change that it happened. It can happen again. And I feel like a lot of people, they have this ignorance that they think that, oh, well, we're in the modern times, we're in color, we have all this technology and stuff like that. They would never think that something as horrid as what happened back then would ever happen again, because it just doesn't seem real. It's like it's the modern age, not
Yeah.
those old past times.
You wouldn't listen to propaganda anymore. Can you believe that?
But the thing is like we are seeing genocides again. Mind
Mhm.
you, yeah, it's not genocides where people being sent off to camps yet. I don't know how that will end out, but like
Mhm.
it is a social genocide. It is a culture war, as I said. I mean, when you think about when I've read about the 10 stages of genocide and read into them, like each stage individually, a lot of those stages, it's it's too close to what's happening with LGBTQ folks right now.
Yep.
And it's that's one thing. Another thing that also genuinely scares me. Now, me, I'm not like the most openly queer guy in the world. Like, I'm very much like I'm I'm not like flamboyant or anything like that. I'm very much like just like you would see me if you saw me in public. You never knew me before, Jesse. You would never know that I'm a furry or that I'm pansexual. Like you would never figure that out because I've never had that appearance. Um, Most of my life was spent being pretty sheltered, so it's like I haven't really had a chance to like dress more like how I want to, or more colorful and more outwardly like I want to. I want to someday. I can't do it right now. But I'd never had to face that kind of discrimination, but that doesn't stop me from caring, like just because I might be more privileged than most doesn't mean I'm just like going to stop caring about other people.
Mhm.
And that's what really, that's what I mean by like, I need people to care the same way I do. Like, even if it doesn't affect you directly, it doesn't help to not care. It means everything to care, or to show to someone who's suffering in the world, hey, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
Or, hey, you're not alone in this. Or, hey, I may not be exactly like you, but I still think this is fucked. It's that acknowledgement and the support that matters so much to a lot of queer folk right now. Um,
Or
so
yeah.
it's like, when we talk about America being fucked, the fact that this has been allowed to happen, this amount of gay hysteria happening again,
Yeah.
because that's happened before here.
Mhm.
Um,
History already
that's
repeating
happened.
itself, and history was apparently 5 years ago.
Yeah, and it's the fact that's happening so rapidly and fast and violently and just adamantly, because like it's, again, like I said, it's becoming popular to be a douchebag, to
Yeah.
be homophobic, to be misogynistic, to be transphobic. It's like the edginess of the early 2010s coming back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah, all those, that was just a joke, people, they're back and they're shittier. It's like, I'm so glad I wasn't part of them anymore. I'm so glad I got out of that.
Mhm.
Uh, so it's like it's going to be a rough fight to do. Like, I think this isn't a revolution right now, but it is some kind of culture war. It is some kind of social war
Yeah.
that a lot of minorities are fighting, so that they are not seen as you know, uh, they're not going to be the victims. They just refuse to be the victims in this. Now, I will say that because the hatred towards LGBTQ people has been so blatant, there
Mhm.
are more people that see it and just like, what the fuck? Like, even people who are not leftists, they see it and they're just like, what the shit is this? Like,
Yeah.
this is like, they see how insane it is.
Mhm.
Like, they see like hatred has no merit, has no reasoning, has no logic to it. It's just blind hatred.
Yeah.
And but people will say that, us calling people like that Nazi, calling conservatives Nazis is too far. But it's like, they still have it in their heads that, oh, you mean people are Nazis back into early 2010s or whatever. And it's like, no, I mean like literal Nazis who are saying, hey, erase the existence of trans people,
Yeah.
stop trans kids from getting medical care, so that either they live their whole lives in the closet or they kill themselves. Like, not even giving people a chance to find themselves. Even as someone who didn't even understand a lot of transgenderism, and when I first started learning it,
Mhm.
I I knew like it was important to respect people and to never ever do transphobic things or misgender or something like that. Like, even I knew when I was still learning not to do that shit.
Yeah.
And like, hey, I mean, hell, like, even when I learned about the pronouns things, I was kind of confused by it at first. Then I was like, oh, wait a minute, it's just grammar.
Yeah.
It's just the thing
It's
that's like,
literally a
oh yeah,
monosyllabic word you have to remember. It's not that hard.
yeah. It's like, oh yeah. Once again, Americans that hadn't been really taught that much, I guess,
Mhm.
growing up. Even with genders that I don't understand, I'm just like, hey, does someone want to be identified as that and they want those pronouns? Fine. Like, how is my day disrupted
Yeah.
because I'm making someone feel better and helping someone with their journey? you
Mhm.
know like, how is that disrupting my day at all? And the fact that this hysteria is going to be like, oh well, if you say their pronouns, they're just trying to control you, it will destroy your whole day. And like, I dare any conservative, I don't even know if they're even watching this, if they even last this long watching this.
Yeah,
But
we'll see
like,
how long the video winds up.
yeah, but like, I dare any conservative right now, just like, use a pronoun. Like, just say the word. Say he right now. Just say he. Say him. Did that hurt you? Did that sting? Did you feel your whole guts being turned inside out because you said the word he and him? No. Oh, because you use it all the time. Use it in passing all the time. You don't even know it because it's grammar. So someone identifies. And also, a great point to bring out. is that people who misgender trans people, if they don't like them, be like, oh
Yeah.
well, they don't have my respect to even have their gender. Can I just say that I hate Trump with all my being, but I've never called him a she.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. And
I I
that's
I, I I
yeah,
hate a lot of I hate a lot of like what was that bitch's name? Marjorie Green Taylor, like
right.
that horrible
Yeah, yeah.
politician. Hey, guess what? She. I called her a she.
Mhm.
I never called her a he or it. Like I I never felt there was never been an inclination in my brain to call Donald Trump a she as a way to insult them.
No,
Never.
but it
Never even
would
had a
have
passing.
but it would have for conservatives because conservatives for a very long time have used femininity as an insult for
Mhm.
men, right?
Mhm.
And I can't count the number of times I was called a girl when I was a kid, and male presenting, masculine presenting, and not aware that anything other than cisgender was even a nobody was really aware back then, at
Yeah.
least in my demographic, that you could be anything other than cisgender. So it was just an insult. Call somebody a girl. You throw like a
Mhm.
girl. You look like a girl. You talk like a girl. Right? You're weak like a girl. And conservatives
Yeah.
still use that all the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sissy
But
boys.
now
You're
they're
just a
using they're more
sissy.
creative.
Yeah,
They
you
use
pussy.
soy.
Yeah.
They use soy boy
Soy
and,
boy. Yep. Yep. So
yeah.
when you say, now all of a sudden, here's, a masculine presenting individual who wants to be referred to as female pronouns, not you are taking something away from that conservative. You're taking away one piece of ammunition, one bullet that they have to insult that person. They can no longer look at me and my long hair and my weak ass muscles and say, "Look at that fucking girly boy," and I'd be like, "Yeah, thanks." Right? Um, and that they don't want that. They want it. They want me to cry when I'm called a girly boy, right?
Well, it's funny because it's like, as I got older, I also realized how stupid a lot of things were when it was like inanimate objects being gendered,
Mm-hmm.
and just like, oh, you can't wear this pink. I remember this is a little tangent, but like when I was a kid, I really wanted an easy bake oven because I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to cook cookies and stuff. Now, obviously, they would have been crap because I've heard the stuff was
They were
spoiled.
awful. Yeah.
But, when I was a kid, it's like I wanted to make cookies, I wanted to make treats. I had a sweet tooth, and
Mhm.
my uncle didn't get it for me because he said that was a girl's toy.
Yeah.
And now look at me at the age of 26. I am baking cookies, I'm baking cakes, I'm baking
That's
pies
wonderful.
and stuff. And because you know what? Cooking was never a gender thing, but like you're
Mhm.
taught this thing, like, oh, this is gender. This is blue is for boy, pink is for girl.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I realized this is stupid. This is really stupid. Like I go out of my way to just buy a pink thing anyway. It's like,
Yeah.
because when I was a kid, I always thought I never even touched pink things. So that ingrained
Mhm.
stupid gender social thing, right?
Yeah.
And now as I get older, I'm like, fuck it, I want to get a pink pencil. I want to get a pink thing. I want to get something purple, something bright. Fuck it, like all this like suppressed,
Yeah.
um, it's social nonsense. Of just like you can't get this because of that. Fuck it, I'm an adult. I'm gonna buy some pink, frilly, glittery stuff if I want to.
Mhm.
So, probably looks nicer too than the than the boring thing. Like I still laugh at like the products are like, this is body wash for men
Yeah.
is charcoal,
Make sure it's black. It's black
water,
label with blue writing. Yeah.
black and blue,
Yeah.
and it's like, dude, I use it's like a brand that's like meant for women bodies, but like I use it because hey, it smells nice.
Mhm.
It's like I'd rather smell like peach and cream than charcoal, please.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah,
just want
definitely.
to nice. So
Smell like a
it's
chain
like
smoker, like a man. Yeah.
it's like a lot of leftists like they don't really care about that kind of stuff, and in a
No.
way, it's really freeing to
Oh yeah.
not feel so restricted to like, oh well, you can't have this toy. That's for girls. I mean,
Mhm.
hell, I still really I haven't done it yet, but I really want to wear a skirt because I would like to.
They
And
feel
I feel like I was
fantastic.
never able to even wear one before. When you think about it, it does make sense for me who has these things down here to have a skirt that's like, something free flowing and not as restrictive on certain areas.
Yep.
Like it seems nice to have, and it's just like there's so much that when you when you become free of those social restrictions and you become more like a true progressive, like a true leftist, a lot of those insults that right wingers have, they don't really work on you anymore. They don't have that same effect.
Yeah.
Instead, it just comes off as really pitiful. Like the more leftist you become, the more pitiful you see right wingers be with these insults and these
Hmm.
childish jabs. Is that all those jabs are reliant on a system that was meant to restrict you and keep you from being your real self.
Yeah.
Like it was a system that was always meant to like make you feel like shit. And now that you're fighting against that system, well, those insults don't really work on you anymore, does it?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter. Like, oh, I'm being called a girl, what? Or are you using some gendered insult on me in 2022? How
Yeah.
passe? Like,
Yeah, totally. And they hate that in a roundabout way. That's why they hate this the pronoun thing and the transgender thing in
yeah,
general so much, is because it's an assault on their system. And their system
exactly.
is inclusive of pejoratives for people who fall outside of that system.
Yeah, like when I actually love how like the definition of woman or man is like so broad now
Hey,
because it is
what is a
completely just.
woman?
Oh yeah, well, Matt Wolf's it's a quick aside, Matt Wolf's a douchebag, but,
God, God, God. All right, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Let's move on.
but no, it's fine, I was just saying that, like, it's amazing how, like, this new movement to, like, completely dismantle all these restrictive things has made people just feel so free, and
Yeah.
it's like, "Why the fuck should I care about what exactly is this or that? I'm me." And
Mhm.
that just be what matters the most is that, "Hey, I'm me, I'm enjoying myself, I'm happy with who I am, and no one can tell me otherwise." And like they said, that power is so useful against conservatives because when you're the one that's like having the best time of your life, just free, whatever, and they're the ones seething, it's like,
Yeah.
it's funny. Who's the snowflake now?
Oh,
Who's the one who's triggered? Who's the one who needs a safe space now?
yeah.
Like, it ain't me, because I'm
Anytime
I'm
their
just
system is challenged, yeah.
yeah. It's like in a way. It's funny because like in an ironic circle, the anti-SJWs have become SJW-ish in how they act and how they conduct themselves. They're the ones who need safe spaces. They're the ones who become snowflakes. They're the ones who try to get things canceled.
Mhm.
Like they'll literally try to cancel the existence of a gay relationship because oh my god, I just can't handle reality. And
Yeah.
when you point that out so blatantly, it does look stupid. And it would be great if this conversation ended here. If it ended with us being like, man, conservatives, they're so stupid. We could just like laugh it off. That would be great.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, we're not there yet. We
No,
can't
they're
really
still dangerous.
comfortably laugh.
Yeah.
We can't comfortably laugh at them yet. We're not at the Jojo Rabbit stage where we comfortably laugh at their stupidity.
Yeah.
We're very much in like the yeah, it's amusing to laugh at, but they still got the power, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They still are the ones that are making the rules and are the ones setting the social climate right now. So I feel like it's important to like, yeah, know that they're ridiculous, know that they're every logic that they have is stupid and it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but also know that they're dangerous and that
Yeah.
they have brainwashed people who are so susceptible and unstable, they will commit acts of violence and become these terrorists that we have in our nation right now, in my nation right now.
Mhm.
Um, I think there is a good balance though, of just like, yeah, they're ridiculous, but don't turn your back on them or just don't underestimate them completely because they're crazy enough to do something to you when you don't expect it.
And privileged enough that they
Um,
feel secure in doing so,
yeah, that's
because the
that's
system
that's the
works for you, as we've been discussing, or works
yeah
for them rather.
yeah. I guess this whole conversation, like, I have been trying to throw in some hope. I'm trying to like give my perspective as an
Sorry for
American.
killing it all.
Huh?
Sorry for killing it all the time.
Here's the thing, right? Is that I feel like when you're telling me about this, you're not trying to come at it as like some like it's all doomed. It's all everything's that.
Yeah.
Like, you're not coming out with that. I don't sense that from you. Like,
No.
you're just stating what's going on, and you're giving your own solution. And as an outsider from this country and from someone in the country, I'm agreeing with you, and I'm also giving my sense of hope, my sense of solutions. And I feel like the overall sentiment could be like, they're still fighting us. Like, they're still fighting me. I'm
Hmm.
not yeah, this is horrifying time, but I'm not gonna stop following the news. I'm not gonna stop supporting where I can. Even if I don't have the money to donate to causes that need their help, or like I can't physically be out there protesting in the streets,
Hmm.
I'm still knowledgeable. I'm still communicating with people. I'm still talking to people, even
Yeah.
if it's just me comforting uh, um, a queer person who just needs that comfort in their day.
Hmm.
That's still something. That's it. It's better to do something, even on the smallest level, than to just not care.
Yeah.
Because there are people who be like, "Oh, well, I'm not political," and it's like, "Well, that's political. You being
Yeah.
non-political is political. You not making a choice is making a choice. And if you're not making a choice to
Yeah.
support queer people right now, you've made the choice to ignore them
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
to just not care about them. And that is a choice you make. That's why even I can't even stand centrists. In a way, I can't stand centrists more than I can stand conservatives sometimes. Because it's like, at least
Hmm.
with conservatives, I can easily spot them out and be
And
like,
you
"Oh
can paint
yeah,
them as the enemy. You can say like, well, then fuck you. But if you say that to a centrist, then you're the asshole, right?
oh they're sneaky.
Hmm.
They're sneaky, sneaky, sneaky." Like it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't have patience for that kind of middle ground thing. We're at a point right now that, yeah, things are fucked, but you have the choice to either do something or you let it happen.
Hmm.
And that's what really is the big takeaway here, is that you can still keep fighting in your own way every day you can. I mean, hell, like, I know the thing with voting right now in America is that a lot of people don't feel like voting really does anything. And I agree to an extent. Like, the voting process does feel kind of like, shit, I voted blue and they still took away rights from women. Like, that's
Yeah.
that slap in the face. But
Hmm.
I still vote because it's one of those small things I can do. Like,
Yeah.
yes, am I voting in a system that's fucked and rigged? Yes. But my thing is, I am voting to just help keep the extreme out. I'm not necessarily
Yeah.
wanting this basic, boring ass, bitch ass Democrat to just do nothing again. I'm just trying to put the vote to just keep the other people out.
Yeah.
And people will be like, man, I don't want to do it. And you know what?
No, it's definitely
If
worthwhile.
you see, here's the thing, right? Is that if you have a hard time voting, or you're having a hard time to even get somewhere you can vote, or there has some kind of voter suppression laws in your state, it's really hard to do it. I can understand the hesitation, but for me, my voting station is like, what, 2 miles away from me? It's at like this community church, something like that. It's like
Right.
not even 10 minutes away. It's literally like brushing my teeth. I'll just go to the polling station, get it done, go home.
Hmm.
If you are able to vote, just do it. I know it feels like it's useless. I understand it, but just do it. Just get out of the way. Do your little, just do that. Just do that. It's just nothing. It's nothing, right?
Hmm.
But do more than that. Do more than just vote. Actually help those in need locally how you can.
Yeah.
Um, help those who need it. Support those who need it. Help either with money or with love. Just do something. Do more than just the vote. Do what you can do.
Support your local leftist movements if one exists. If the government,
Exactly.
if like a lot of leftist communities are kind of icky, definitely like keep your ears up and make
Oh
sure that
yeah.
you're supporting something decent because some of them are just like straight up cults.
Yep. Yep.
You get even the Communist Party of the United States is not the most wonderful by any stretch, but like you have the PSL, which seems decent. There's a few other parties that are definitely worthwhile, and if there's chapters nearby, support those.
Hmm.
And the big thing for me, as somebody who doesn't have a lot of money, who doesn't have any of those chapters anywhere nearby, keep
Hmm.
talking. like you touched on that earlier, like not just talking on the internet. Talking on the internet is fine, but talk about it in real life. Talk about socialism in real
Mhm.
life. Talk about alternatives. Talk about anti-capitalism in general. You don't have to use the S word or the C word.
Yeah,
You just
unfortunately, right now, that word is still like a
it's
boogeyman
still a
here.
boogeyman, but you can still say, you know what, capitalism is kind of junk. Or you can even just say corporations have taken over America. Most people won't agree with you, won't disagree with you on that. And you can
Mhm.
keep the conversation going from there. And just a lot of people don't disagree with you on that, and they think that they're the only ones who see it because they don't hear about it on the news. They don't hear anybody, those talking heads talking about how capitalism has destroyed the nation, right? They don't hear about anybody talking about how, the common thread of all of these nasty things happening abroad in Africa and the global South in general. Sure does seem like capitalism is causing these things. I don't know if I can say that. Does that make me a bad person? Like, no, capitalism sucks. Say it to their face,
Yeah,
and they'll go, holy shit, somebody else. Maybe it's not such a strange thing to think this way after all.
yeah.
And when that fight does inevitably come, as you talked about, like it is eventually going to snap. One side or the other is going to start the violence. We want to make sure we have as many people as possible on our side.
Yeah, and again, like you mentioned, it's having that feeling of knowing I'm not alone.
Yeah.
That is really important as
Build a
well. Like
community.
if yeah, the community and knowing that there are people who share the same thoughts as you, that is so important because it helped me
Yeah.
like realize where my political beliefs and other beliefs lie when I
Mm-hmm.
realized that, oh, what I'm thinking isn't too insane. It's actually like a pretty shared sentiment.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it helps to
It's
feel less
actually tame.
alien.
Yeah.
And so like that comfort, that community is very, very important. That's why like I'm thankful to have people in my life in my friend circles who are willing to have that conversation with me and that dialogue. And
Mm-hmm.
like they aren't afraid of politics. Like, 'cause this is one thing I can't stand is people who's like, I don't want to talk politics, it's too scary. It's like it's a scary time, talk about it. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just like you gotta talk about it. Like I'm sorry, like I love to talk about other things like uh, furry stuff and pictures. I'd love to talk about the kind of shit, but I really can't. Not
Mm-hmm.
right now. Like I can have a balance, right? Because here's the thing about this is that another thing I want to bring up. A lot of people are afraid of politics because in their heads they think, "Oh my god, politics is just like screaming on the internet. It's back and forth. It's this thing, whatever."
Both
It
sides
can
are
be a civil,
awful. Yeah.
yeah, it can be a civil conversation.
Yeah.
There's no one saying that it can't be. The only time I've ever gone off on someone when talking politics was when they were talking straight up bullshit. And I told you the story before. It
Mm-hmm.
was during the debates when Trump would not condemn white nationalism.
Right.
And we were having a conversation in the group, and one person said something that was not only just in their opinion, it was utter BS. And they said, there is no white nationalism problem in America.
Oh God.
They said that. And again, like I said, any other conversation, I can be civil about it. If it's just an opinion, if it's just someone being misled. To say something like that as if it's fact is misinformation and it's bullshit and it's dangerous. And I
Mm-hmm.
went off. I called them ignorant. I called them an idiot. I called them stupid. I was like, and this is from a black person saying this. So that made me even more angry.
Of
That this
course.
is
Yeah.
like,
Like that's something that hits
fuse
close to
you.
home.
Like, yeah, like me and you are the same color. You're saying something that's so dangerous and so idiotic that it baffles me you would believe this. This is another topic about minorities being conservatives. That's enough for another day. But it's just like, I went off and people were like, why'd you get off? And I was like, listen, I could talk politics, but it's just I can't handle that nonsense when you're
Mm-hmm.
just talking that amount of bullshit and just spreading that misinformation. Misinformation has been such a trigger for me because it's led to so much horrific things, so many people getting hurt, so many people dying. Misinformation is just so dangerous. That is the only time I would ever go off on someone as far as politics are concerned if misinformation is involved, because I don't have patience for it anymore. It's hurt too many people, it's harmed too many people, it's set us back so much that
Mm-hmm.
it's like, if we're gonna have a conversation, you need to be willing to learn. Because the thing is, there's a lot of people who will try to be like, well, I could talk about politics, but they come at it in bad faith and they have
Right.
no interest in wanting to learn. If it's at that point, like I said before, the whole like someone becoming a Nazi thing, You as an individual, you're not under any obligation to talk to someone who you feel might be too far gone or is not coming at a conversation in good faith
Mhm.
to have that conversation. Now, if it's someone that is Republican or conservative, right? But it's clear that they don't really understand, or they've grown up in environments where they're just ignorant. They never had to be challenged on anything, and they're willing to listen. That's something. That's good. Like, I know that some people will be really combative because, of course, you have your guard up. That's understandable. But if it's someone that is willing to listen and learn, and if you have the spoons and the patience for it,
Yeah.
I would say talk to them. You not necessarily have to like educate them or anything like that, pay them a full course, but talk to them. I have a friend who grew up in a household who was pretty bigoted and racist, right? But she as a person, um, she's not a hateful person. Like she was taught this stuff. Like, no, she was around it, but like she never really like embraced it,
Mhm.
like that just wasn't in her to do it. And as she met more people in the furry fandom, she's like became a lot more understanding. There were some points at the beginning of our relationship where she would ask me questions about black people because she just didn't know. And
Right.
it was in her tone. It wasn't like she genuinely wanted to learn. It wasn't just like this thing where like she like
That's
came at it like,
fantastic.
hey, I heard that you black people like this, and this. Like she wasn't being ignorant. She was just like,
Right.
hey, I don't understand this and I want to be more conscious of it. Can you tell me about it? In that case, I am more than happy to talk to you about that. If you have that mindset where you want to learn and you want to listen and you're willing to, that's great. That's wonderful. And as a result, like she's a lot more conscious now of a lot of things now.
That's
Like
excellent. That's so rare
you
too.
you would never think that she grew up in that kind of home.
Mhm.
Like that kind of thing is great. Again, if you don't speak with someone who's coming at it in bad faith, that's totally fine. But again, just talking to people who are willing to learn, that's a good first step. But again, if it's too much, hey, someone else might do it. Maybe I'll do it. Like it's fine if you can't handle it. You fight the battles you can, and if you can't fight some other battles, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people, like especially right now, who would fight them and try to fight that hard fight. Like there are a lot of leftist people now who, if you don't feel like you can do it, there's probably leftists next to you that can. Like
Yeah, and it
it's
is
it doesn't.
worthwhile. If not
Mhm.
even for the person that you're speaking to, you might be speaking with a straight up fucking Nazi, but there might be 30 other people in the chat who are watching. And if that straight up
Exactly.
fucking Nazi is just goes unchallenged, well, that must be what the community is. That must be what is normal to think around here. Right.
Exactly. Like, it's one of those things where like I remember being in like, Reddit threads on like these what was it? Public freak out, something like that,
Right.
like those subreddits. You see
Hmm.
those kind of posts where it's like it's clearly trying to paint the black person as like, oh, well, this black person this, all black people
Yeah.
must be just violent. And then you have one person who's just like, hey, could we not be so racist? And it's
Gets
like it's
downvoted all
that
to hell.
one person,
But
but still, they put their stuff out there.
yeah,
They
it's
said it.
important.
And guess what? I saw it. I saw it because I was looking for that same comment too. And I
Hmm.
saw it. It's like, okay, there's someone out there, even if they're not close by, who is like, they have their head on straight.
Yeah.
And that's good. So it's like, even if you feel like you are being outnumbered by a lot of hateful douchebags, say what you got to say.
Yeah.
Because someone's going to say it and someone's going to read it. Someone who feels like they're alone in it, they're going to read it and be like, oh, okay, it's not just me.
Yeah,
It's like there's going
exactly.
to be that relief, and that helps to like spread the word more than you think.
Yeah. A lot of people disparage online conversation and standing up against it, against fascism in general in public spaces, especially on the internet. We like to think that the internet isn't real life, so don't stop treating it like real life. If somebody's being an asshole, just let them be an asshole. But no, like the internet is very influential these days.
Yeah.
I think if nothing else, the Trump election, his election in 2016 proved that. Like nobody imagined that he would get to where he was, and he got entirely where he was because of organization online.
Hmm.
Um, the left is still kind of, and I have to wonder why the left is still kind of on this page of stop fucking around with the internet. we still it's still a mode of communication. It's our primary mode of communication these days. Like, communicate on it. You need to shape the zeitgeist. You need to be online. That's just how it is. Not terminally online, not only online. Again, definitely talk to that random dude on the bus too about the horrors of capitalism. Right? It's important to organize and be active offline as well. But like, you have those conversations online. You see fascism, you call it out. Doesn't matter where it is. I don't care if it's in a third grade classroom. If some little kid, 8-year-old kid, is being a fascist, tell him he's being a fascist. Like, do it everywhere. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah,
call it out everywhere. Whether it's a kid, whether it's an adult, whether it's online, whether it's off, call it out everywhere.
if a dog is being racist or
If the
fascist,
dog
be
is
like,
being a
hey,
fascist, I don't know, actually. I don't know how I would communicate with that. I don't like dogs, so.
you just say, bad boy, no treats for you,
Yeah.
until until you've read some Marxist reading.
How do you translate German into dog?
Well, you have a German Shepherd. That's a bad joke.
Oh
German Shepherd.
god.
That's a terrible joke from me.
Terrible name for a dog.
But yeah. I think we've had a good conversation about this, because again, we're trying to be too doom and gloom about it. We're
No.
just trying to be realistic about what's happening, and realistic about what can you do. Because like, if Jesse's video was just about like America's fucked, that's it, end video, then this fucking conversation would probably be different. Wouldn't
Yeah,
be as
how's that
hopeful.
helpful? That would remind me
Like,
of Jordan Peterson being like, well, this is bad, but what can you do? Right?
yeah, like that's not hopeful. Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to be that negative, at least throw in a little sprinkling of positivity. Like even if the positivity seems so far off and hard, just a little bit. And you know what? I guess my final thoughts would be, I know you haven't played this game yet, Jesse. I'm not going to spoil it. You really should play it already, though. Damn it. It is Disco Elysium.
I've played through half of it.
And well, there's there's like a side plot with communism.
Yeah.
And the ideals of communism. And all I'll say is that the ending of that side plot has a very similar kind of tone to this conversation. In that communism feels like it's this fantasy, like it's this monumental, unreal thing that will never happen. That's just like, it's so beautiful, it's so great that it just seems like it would never happen. But as long as someone's fighting for it, as long as there's one person that's standing up to fascist ideology, as long as there's at least one person, there's that belief, it can still be real. Even if it doesn't seem like it can be, there's still the possibility of it. And I think that's what makes leftism so strong, is that it's just the fight that everyone has in them
Yeah.
to keep fighting for that future.
Yeah. And the video is just, it's not saying it's not possible to change America. It's saying that it's not possible for America, the American system, to change itself.
Mhm.
It's not saying you're doomed. It's saying you need to fucking fight.
Exactly. Every day. In your own way, however you can.
However you can, yeah. And that doesn't mean picking up an AK-47 and going to town. This isn't Cuba.
Yeah.
This isn't China, right?
No.
It means, just like you were saying, it means sometimes just standing up for somebody who needs standing up for, or being a shoulder to lean on.
Exactly.
It'll mean in the future seizing those means, right? You talked about, you kind of touched on general strikes earlier. I think it goes more towards that. I think America has done a lot. The American system has done a lot to make general strikes unfeasible, but cooperating is not. Rent strikes are definitely still feasible as well. Like, there are definitely measures, revolutionary measures to take. Those are fighting, even though, again, they don't actually involve anybody actually getting even punched, right? You don't need to be punching Nazis. You just need to be organizing.
Although I will say, punching Nazis is a nice little bonus.
If you can punch a Nazi, punch a Nazi, but you don't have to.
It's a nice little bonus. You don't have to.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
You can have it as a treat, right?
Yeah, nice little treat. Nice little treat meal. And, I will say though that like with the whole striking thing that is that a lot of these union busting tactics, because we're in the age of the internet
Mhm.
and people don't really care about leaking stuff,
Yeah.
those tactics are being more documented now than they ever been before.
Oh, yeah.
And people are starting to find the patterns and they're able to see who's doing it, what companies are behind it. Like the age of the internet has caused a lot of problems, but it's also
Mhm.
caused a lot of awareness too.
Yeah.
For all these things that have happened in the past that have been stopping these strikes and the overall revolution of America, it's now becoming more apparent. More people are understanding the tactics used by corporations to stop strikes, by conservatives. They're starting to learn all the little tricks, and it's just like all that knowledge, all that learning, really useful. So like
Mhm.
pay attention to what's out there. Pay attention to what these corporations are doing, what these politicians are doing, because a lot of these politicians, they're old to the point that they don't understand that their shit is being archived forever, and all their tricks
Yeah.
are being put out there, and that they're not as sneaky as they think they are.
Mhm.
Like you just got to pay attention. You got to be willing to pay attention.
Yep, definitely. Even if it's not your company unionizing, you know what? Support the company that is, because support your not the company, obviously, the workers who are unionizing.
Hmm.
Like, there's so many things that you can do to support, so many things that you can do to fight at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, shit. When when the Kellogg's strikes were happening at the time,
Hmm.
what was
Solidarity
happening
was
was
great behind that.
yeah, Solidarity was great. It was funny because like people were even documenting like the what was it, the scabs?
Yeah,
Is that was that
yeah,
they're
that was
called?
a
Yeah,
huge
the
thing.
scab. Yeah, they were like fucking up the quality of the products.
Yeah,
And I didn't as much. I didn't have the money, but like I did a small thing. I didn't buy any Kellogg stuff. Didn't
yep,
buy anything else. I bought alternatives.
sure,
And hell, I found stuff that I like better than the Kellogg's thing. Like,
yep,
it's just like it's not hard to stand in solidarity with people. It's actually a lot easier than you might think.
hmm,
It may seem like it's difficult because, like, oh man, do I gotta like
yeah.
go in the picket
But I
line? Do I
like
got
Fruit
donuts?
Loops so much.
Here's
What do I do,
here's the thing,
Dev?
right?
I don't know if I
Here's the
can
thing,
do
right?
this, Dev.
Okay, this imaginary just from another universe who likes
Yep,
Fruit
yep.
Loops a lot.
Fruit Loops
Um,
are really tasty. I will say that. Actually, no, fuck Kellogg's. Fruit
Here's the
Loops
thing.
suck. Go ahead.
You can find some other cereals that are just as good that are not from Kellogg's. Like I know it's crazy, but there are other brands out there. There are other like, I mean, hell, little tangent. But like I try to do this like little thing where I try to I don't know how true it is, but like this brand called King Arthur's brand, like has like
Okay.
King Arthur flour, and it's like to say it's employee owned. It's an
Oh,
employee owned
nice.
company.
Yeah, that's always good to
Um,
support.
so it's like, hey, I try to just get some flour from them every now and again if I can.
Yep.
Um, or hell, like get like the off-brand shit. Like sometimes the off-brand shit can be okay, you know.
Mhm.
I was about to say if it's even possible to pirate Fruit Loops. It's nuts.
But yeah,
But
no, supporting other companies, especially worker-owned companies. Up here in Canada, our grocery stores are all owned by basically a single company. It's essentially a monopoly. There's a few other grocery stores. There's your mom and pop grocery stores,
mhm.
and in my province, there's a actually very large chain of cooperative. It's literally just called Co-op, and it's a little bit more expensive than these, big chains that are all owned by the same company for obvious
Yeah,
reasons. But you know what? I shop there. I go in there and in my red beret, and I shop. I
nice.
shop for groceries at the co-op, and it's not that difficult just these tiny little things that we can do right
And
now.
and to
That's
touch
not
on that, like
necessarily fighting, but it is in solidarity.
yeah, and to touch on that just real quick, like say that, you know, the price is a problem, you gotta go for the cheaper thing that just so happens to be a corporation.
Of course.
I'm not gonna yell at you for that.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna be like, "Oh my god, you bought the Kellogg's, you fucking fascist!" Like, I'm
You
not gonna
bought
do
something
that.
from Amazon. How dare you? It's like it's
Yeah,
the only
like,
place I could find it. Is Amazon
yeah,
has a monopoly. What do you want me to do?
yeah, like
Right.
again, let's go back to do what you can,
Yeah.
right? And let's say that you're able to go to that mom and pop shop. Guess what you do next? You tell someone else about it. Like,
Hmm.
hey, this is like this mom and pop shop sells some really good shit. You should go and check it out.
Yeah.
That's spreading the word. Again, that's like if the
Hmm.
person doesn't, like the person ends up shopping there, guess what? less money out of the corporation's pocket, more to that local shop, the mom and pop shop, that employer-owned shop. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you do your own thing, and you spread the word about it. Stuff like that helps. It's again, it's the little stuff. I know it seems little, it might even seem like a lot, but it's still something. It's solidarity. It's important all the same.
And it spreads awareness too. It's like, okay, well, why are you telling me to go to this mom and pop store instead of, the superstore, which is what that one of those chains is called up here.
Oh, speaking of
It's like,
capitalism.
because yeah, exactly, right? It's like, well, I'm glad you asked. Here's the bad things about superstore. Here's the good
Yep,
things about the cooperative. Here's the good things about the mom and pop store. Right? It's
exactly.
I can't count the number of times that I've heard of a friend saying that they're about to buy something on Amazon. I'm like, wait. I can find you it from somewhere else. Just give me a second. I'll find it. And I do, and then sometimes they wind up buying it from Amazon anyway because they're fucking cheap, and they'll be like, "Well, it's the shipping is cheaper on Amazon. I have Amazon Prime," and I'm like, "Why do you have Amazon Prime?" But
I
at least you
will.
try, right? At least and even if they don't give a shit and they still buy from Amazon, you still put that bug in your ear. It's like you kind of probably shouldn't be doing that, and maybe next time you should consider not.
Mhm.
It's another form of communication, and if it's relevant to something somebody is doing, like buying groceries or buying something on Amazon, then that's going to have more of an effect than just beating somebody about the brow with it on the bus and saying, "Hey, have you heard the good word of our Lord and Savior Karl Marx?"
Yeah, it's like it's a comment I saw on a post where it's like, listen, if you're gonna talk communism, you gotta like you kind of ease it in.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
gotta do a little work up to it. Don't just go jamming right in.
yeah,
Just like
exactly.
you
Find
just
ways to
ease on.
find ways to communicate it. Yeah.
Yeah, like just I
And it
mean, it's
does
the
feel
same
like
thing with
such a
any
tiny little
kind of
stupid thing. It's like, oh, great, wonderful. You shop at a different store. Good going, comrade. You're really fighting hard. But like you tell people about it and you make it part of your praxis. And people can see that, and people ask you, well, why are you shopping at the cooperative when it's, your shampoo there is $5 more. Why on earth would you shop there? Well, let me tell you. Now that it's relevant, let me discuss this with you.
and even if it doesn't hit them immediately, that's still a
Mm-hmm.
conversation that they remember.
Yeah, yeah, it's a seed. It's a bug in their ear.
Mhm. Yeah, and again, I feel like people might hear this and be like, "How is that any different from like indoctrination or religion or whatever?" It's just like here's
It's
the thing,
not.
right? Here's the thing, is that it's this funny picture I saw. I was like, leftism's going to save you whether you like it or not. Like,
Yeah.
um, a lot of leftism really is as simple as, hey, do you care about people? Do you think that corporations are pretty bad and stuff? And like, that's not good? Guess what? You might already be a filthy lefty,
Yeah.
but it's not scary. It's not. And the thing is, leftism isn't trying to like indoctrinate you into like giving up all your
Yeah.
desirables
We're
or
not
like,
profiting from
hey,
this.
we're not. See, it's not a profit. It's not trying to take away from you or make you do something stupid. It is literally telling you that this world can be so much better, but not with this system. And
Mhm.
here's how we can do it in little ways. It's not trying to get money from you, not trying to get your personality, not trying to take your meaning. It's trying to say we can do so much better with better.
Yeah.
And that's literally all it is. Like it's just teaching you how to be more conscious of the world around you and
Yeah.
how this world's fucked. It doesn't have to be.
And
Like
when the fight
that's
comes and the line that's already been drawn becomes an actual proper separation, and that snap happens, you want to be sure that people are aware of what's going on and don't just side with the one that their parents are going with.
yeah, it's not as scary as you think. It's not intimidating. Look, and if you've had a bad experience with this kind of thing, that's unfortunate. Like that's no one should have a bad experience trying to be a better person.
Mhm.
Um, I would just say don't let one bad experience ruin the entire movement and what it means to be a leftist, or what it means to really truly be a progressive. Like, don't let that one experience ruin it because
There's
what
crazies in every
happens is that
circle. Yeah.
what happens is that if you do, that's how conservatives snatch you up
Mhm.
and they make you think that, oh well, those leftists, they're too busy infighting. They don't actually care. Now listen, we conservatives, we care about the traditional family. You know, they'll use terms that sound good,
Yeah. You
but
love your
they always
family, don't you?
have
You love freedom.
a they have a dark, dark meaning behind it, but they get you by that flowery language by saying it's about family, it's about tradition, it's about good values.
Mhm.
Tho
Common
those two
sense.
words,
Yeah.
common sense,
That's a big one.
you know, they'll use those words, make it seem like we're the party that actually cares about it, but then when you dig just a little bit under the surface, you see bigotry, misogyny, racism, fascism, corporatism, all this shit, and they use those buzzwords but never actually mean it. And you if all you here's the thing, if you want to if I wanna say that, like, a Democrat is literally evil, right? Or a leftist is literally
Mhm.
evil. More often than not, that kind of stuff comes like, well, they drink kids' blood, or they have these sex trafficking circles, something like that. Like
Oh, the
something just
QAnon
so
shit. Yeah.
ridiculous. Yeah, the QAnon shit. Well, if I want to say that a Republican's bad, hey, Google Matt Gates. Just Google him
Yeah.
and just like find all the factual, actual, legitimate fucked up shit he did. Like I don't have to lie to say that Matt Gates is bad. A
Mhm.
conservative always has to lie and make up a story
Yeah.
to make their opponents. Their opponents are not real. Their opponents are make believe, they're fictional, they're outlandish caricatures of the people that they don't like. If
Yeah.
I want to say that the Republican's bad, all you got to do is just look it up and just
Mhm.
find all the evidence of how many sex offenders, how many racists, how many fucked up kinds of people on the GOP right now talking to the public. Fucking Ted Cruz, for fuck's sake, still out there. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's just like, all you got to do is just look, and then you tell me with a straight face that the Democrats and Republicans are exactly the same. And I can assure you that it's not that simple. It's not as simple as both sides. It's never been that simple.
Mhm.
And we've had 8 years to prove it's not that simple, but it doesn't take that much to educate yourself. It's not difficult. And if you are consuming the right kind of news that is not clearly bigoted, like Fox News, like because Fox News is just a propaganda channel,
Yeah.
obviously. And then there's other news stations that are right leaning. And again, in this age now, there's a lot of misinformation that makes it hard to figure out which one's right, which one's not right. It can be easy though. Like again, you see those buzzwords, traditional family value, the common sense thing. That's how they tell themselves, like on how they're not being legitimate, they're not being genuine with what they are. Um, and just talk to people as well, and just keep an eye out. That's stay woke. Honestly, just
Yeah.
be aware. Just be aware. Just don't always take one narrative that some raging conservative is saying and think that that is the only narrative. Trust me, it's never the only narrative ever.
Yeah. And even it's really, really important to keep driving home that in the United States, especially, centrism isn't what you think it is.
Mhm.
Centrism is conservative. I just had somebody link me to a Vox article to debate something, and I looked at the article and I'm like, this article doesn't actually quote any sort of facts. The only fact that it gives is that there's one individual's opinion that this is the case. This individual is a writer for what was it now? Real Clear Policy, which is a pro-Trump news aggregate. Like this is Vox. This is like the centrist online um, news site.
You see, I'm just now I'm learning something because I'd never thought that Fox was a centrist news site. I never had that impression. Now I'm learning something.
Yeah, people think of it as centrist or people think of it as center left, right? It's not. It's still just a capitalist piece. Everything that you consume, every piece of American media that you consume, I don't care if it's the New York Times, it is right wing for all intents and purposes. It is conservative. It wants things to stay the same the way they are now. it doesn't actually want real progress. You will never see Vox or the New York Times pressing for real progressive change in areas that matter. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So even looking at those narratives, recognize that there is another narrative, that there is
Exactly.
there is an actual left wing that exists. And that's why we need to keep talking. We need to show people that there is a real left wing in America and it's not the fucking Democrats.
Yeah. Honestly, like that's I don't know really else to say really, but yeah, just
Yeah, we can.
there's always another narrative out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like just
And
be
consume it
aware.
all. Like, definitely.
Yeah.
If you're on the left, go ahead and then look at the right wing media too.
Now, again, if you like don't have the spoons for that nonsense, if it's too
Sometimes you don't
much
have
for
the
you,
spoons, yeah, because I
yeah,
think a lot of the time when you're on the left, you're on the left because you know it's bullshit. And
yeah,
you're reading it and you can see like how you're reading it, and you're like, how does anybody believe this? Like, this is incredible. How does anybody read this and go like, yeah, that's right. Damn
I
right.
will.
Like, holy shit, I want to pull out my hair. All of my hair. I have a lot of hair. I'm gonna rip out all of it.
Yeah, like here's the thing, I will look at the ramblings of a crazy conservative, like a video clip or something like that, just to
Mhm.
remind myself that it's real.
Yeah,
Just
yep.
to remind myself that
And
like
what it looks like so
this
you can
is a real
recognize it.
person saying it. I remember this is a long time ago. This happened in America. Like this is in high school, but I'll never forget it because I saw the video just to confirm it that it was actually something that was said. I saw the quote and it sounded ridiculous.
Yeah.
Then I saw the video, and you know what the video was?
What?
It was this Republican conservative being like, "Well, you see, a rape victim can't get
Oh
pregnant because
God.
the female body
I remember
has
that.
a way to reject the rape sperm." And again, it was one thing to read the quote, but I watched the video because I just had to confirm that an actual human being said that.
Yeah.
Just to realize how ridiculous it was,
Yeah.
and that cemented it.
And
I had a
definitely
good laugh.
verify this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good laugh about it. It was a bit fucked up and depressing, but I had a good laugh about it because it was so absurd and ridiculous. But it reminds you that people like that are out there. They have a platform saying
Mhm.
all this dumb shit, and you gotta combat it wherever you can.
Yeah.
Like, just like never let this kind of insanity or absurd way of thinking be the narrative that will control everything because we've
Yeah.
seen where that leads. Um, just yeah, be open to like call it out, and again, you don't have to debate it. I would say even debating it is
Yeah.
useless. So the debating
Don't
it would mean
platform it
like,
more. Yeah.
yeah, don't be
Don't go and
stop.
post on your social media, hey, I just saw this crazy video where this asshole said that women have a way of terminating a pregnancy that they don't want, so therefore rape isn't real. Let's talk about this right now because I just saw this. Don't fucking do that. You're just platforming this more.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
see
I
somebody
was
platforming it already, tell them to fuck off.
yeah.
That's when you do it.
I was gonna more point out.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. Like you're on the right track. What I was gonna say, it's like don't debate, bro, it because debating would mean that it's a valid enough point to debate,
Yeah.
right? Like, um, what was it? It was like you've heard of Andrew Tate, right?
Yep. I sure
Yeah.
have. I've heard of him very
He's
recently.
yeah, he's been deplatformed
He
in a
sure
lot of
has.
places, and people have been like, "Why would you deplatform? You have to have him at a platform so that way we can debate and to prove that he's wrong." It's like, tell me what is there to debate with the topic of women should be respected? What is there to
Yeah.
debate about that? And plus, he has been debated. He never changes his mind.
Hmm.
So it's like, not only are you platforming him, you're wasting your time. Like, all you gotta do is say, like, "Waste is fucked up. I'm not gonna go any further on that," and then leave it.
You're
That's it.
feeding his
Just
algorithm.
yeah, just be like, "This guy's stupid. I'm not gonna say anything more about it, but just say that he's stupid, this is wrong," and then just done. Like, that's it. Like, don't debate him. Don't bring him onto your channel for everyone to see.
Yeah.
Don't do that shit. Like, what is there to debate about someone who thinks well, first of all, like he's a sex trafficker. It's like, why would you want to debate
Mhm.
him anyway? But then it's like, oh, you want to debate the topic of women should only be allowed to cook and clean. It's like, what is there to debate? It's 2022 again. Like, can you recognize the times that we're in? Like,
Mhm.
it's a little bit past the time to debate about. does he have a point of this? No, he has no point. Never had a point. He's just a misogynistic dickhead who
Yeah,
just shouldn't have that platform. Don't give him the platform. It's that simple. Don't give a Nazi a platform. Deplatforming is good when it comes to hate speech because, and I think I'll end this whole on my end. I'll end it here.
for sure.
Just like say it is that free speech. I heard this thing about free speech a lot. And a lot of you Americans, I know I'm saying that as an American, so it's kind of hypocritical, but a lot of you Americans don't know what free speech is. I'm saying this to you as a Black American who has seen the same argument about free speech ever since I was in high school. And that is that, well, this racist should have the freedom to say what he wants to say. I've heard this since high school, and I never liked it. As I got older, I understood why I don't like it. And it's because when you say that this person have the freedom to say whatever the fuck he wants, you're letting him say hate speech. It is flat out hate speech is what it is. It's not an opinion that is meant to like challenge anything or make people think. It's literally just hate speech. And deplatforming is done by people, by either corporations or businesses or whatever, who have the right to let whatever kind of thing they want in their business or not. That is their freedom of speech to do so. To like, if this kind of speech is a little dangerous to our platform, we have our freedom of speech, not let that on our platform. And if you are someone, I remember hearing this too, like if someone ever criticized a racist, like, oh, he's trying to keep him silent, trying to keep him from his freedom of speech. No, you're practicing your freedom of speech. Freedom of speech works both ways. Sure, you have the freedom to say a bunch of racist shit without having being put in a gulag or whatever. But guess what? I have the freedom to call you an asshole. And
And show
that's
you the
freedom
door.
of speech. It's both ways. They're not trying to cancel you, they're not trying to silence you. They are literally practicing their rights in their way to that person's bullshit. And just whenever you hear that shit about how, oh man, it's cancel culture, people criticizing, it's not cancel culture. Cancel culture is not real. All right. It's literally people being like, you know what? We've had to hear this kind of fucked up, bigoted shit for years, and we're not going to take it anymore. And we're going to call you out on it. And then if people want to call you out on it as well, that is their freedom of speech. It's freedom of
Mhm.
speech working just as it was intended. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you can just suddenly say I'm being canceled or whatever. It's freedom of speech. And if someone's using their freedom of speech to say Nazism is bad, damn right. That's great. That should just be like the default, just to say that
Yep.
Nazism is bad. And if a company chooses to deplatform a Nazi because they're being a Nazi, that's their freedom of speech. That is their freedom to do so. And then, as much as corporations are not genuine, it is still a good step in the right direction to never platform a fascist because we've
Mhm.
seen where that shit goes. We've had enough lessons to see where that shit goes when you platform a fascist in a way that makes it seem like their viewpoint isn't any way valid to be platformed in the first place.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to say against that. Like, and it comes
Sorry,
back
just
down to calling out fascists when you see them,
mhm.
in your server, and they say, "Well, it's my freedom of speech to say." I recently had in a server somebody coming in and saying, "Who's the leader of Vichy France again? Remember his
Oh, I wouldn't
name?
know. I wouldn't know at all.
Pétain. Pétain. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce that. I look that up.
Hmm.
Then we can edit that in and
No.
make me seem smart.
Well, what were they saying about him?
Pétain. Saying that he wasn't a fascist. Came in and said that he was actually a really good person and he wasn't a bad guy and he wasn't a fascist and anybody that he had killed had it coming. And the server ruled that wasn't political because it happened a long time ago. It's historical. It's just talking about history. And here's me being like, nope, this guy's a fucking fascist. I'm calling him out right now. It's like, well, it's my freedom of speech. I'm allowed to say what I want in here. I'm just
Mhm.
talking about history, and history is interesting to me. Is that so bad to you? It's like, yeah, it fucking is. I am removing your freedom of speech right now because you can't just come in and start, dog whistling like that.
And guess what? That was your freedom of speech because that was your community. That was your
Yeah, to an extent, it was me
place.
curtailing his freedom of speech, though, because that shit does need to be curtailed.
Well, it's hate speech though, and hate
It's hate
speech
speech,
shouldn't
yep.
be
And it does damage
considered.
people, and that's what it comes down to. There is a very people ask like, where's the line? If you curtail someone's freedom of speech here with your whether it's through your own freedom of speech or not, if you're curtailing somebody's freedom of speech, where does it end? Am I allowed to curtail you for espousing communism? And it's like, well, does me espousing communism make people hate anybody? You know, make them want to kill anybody?
Yeah,
Probably not. Whereas you saying that somebody who literally made a career out of murdering Jews was actually a good person, it does lend to that narrative.
exactly. And you know, there was that one philosophy that was the thing that really was like pushed me further to the left was the whole thing of like never tolerating intolerance,
Exactly. Yeah.
which was like I think I always had that belief, but I didn't know how to put it into words.
Mhm.
When I read that quote and I read the belief behind it, it's like finally I know exactly what it is that I use as my argument now against
Yep.
that kind of bullshit. Is that you know, me being intolerant of your intolerance is not a bad thing because
Mhm.
your intolerance is inherently bad. It's hurt people. And if I don't stop it now, it will hurt more people. So
Exactly.
I'm putting a stop to it right now. So that way, the people who need that support, who need that love, who need that care will not be harmed by your intolerant actions. If you are tolerant of intolerance, you will let intolerance win.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It's happened before, and we would like it to not happen again, especially now with the rise of all these crazy people who want to start hurting people. Like, just never tolerate that kind of shit. It
Yep.
does not make you intolerant, it makes you a decent person.
Yep. Tolerate everything that cannot be changed about an individual: sexuality, race, gender, religion. A lot of the time, that one's a bit iffy, but a lot of the time that's culturally connected.
Mm,
Um, you know, and don't tolerate things that are intolerable that can be
yeah.
changed about a person, like intolerance.
Fascism is a choice.
Fascism is a choice. They can choose
Sure.
to not be a fascist. You're not being racist against somebody for being a fascist. Why? Because
Yeah,
you can't change the fact that you're black. He can change the fact that he's a fascist. Easy.
exactly.
It's a very, very easy argument. It's not the mind game that these people like to
Yeah.
pretend it is. Like
Do
there's
not
two
let them make
sides.
the
There's
mind
not two
game.
sides. There's a good side and there is evil that is choosing to be evil.
Yep. Yep. They'll say to you that like, not everything's black and white, not everything's gray either. And
Yeah.
as far as fascism goes, listen, there are people who are pro-fascist and people who are anti-fascist. Antifa, I just said the bad word, Antifa.
Yeah.
But
Antifa. No, it's not. It's not
yeah,
Antifa. It's Antifa. You got to make it sound like it's Islamic.
Antifa. Yeah, I
Antifa.
gotta
Yeah.
make it sound scary
Yeah.
for Americans. Ooh, I just sent Serpentine spine. Damn, I wish I could track my arms, but I'm just like I'm still my arms, my side. I don't have that kind of tracking. Anyway, I'm making ooh sounds with my hands, these little scary ooh fingers. But yeah, either you are pro-fascist or you are anti-fascist, and if you're anti-fascist, hey, guess what? You're a decent person. You know, and be just
Yeah.
keep learning to be better.
It's easy to pick out.
You can always
Fascism
be
is not a
better.
difficult thing to spot. It's not a
Yep,
difficult thing to define. People need to stop saying that it is.
yep. You can always be better. And if you are fighting a fascist, whether it is with a fist or with knowledge to help other people fight fascism, you're on the right track to understanding how to fix this really fucked up world to something better.